Christian Henderson's sweat glistens on his neck as he steps off the shuttle onto the vibrant purple soil of the Packlet homeworld. The human diplomat's arrival marks the beginning of crucial trade negotiations, but he's unprepared for the biological curiosity he's about to ignite. Uma, a stunningly beautiful Packlet female with iridescent skin, approaches Christian. Her large, luminous eyes widen as she takes in his alien form. "Welcome, human Henderson. I am your liaison for these agricultural discussions." As they walk towards the gleaming crystal spires of the Packlet capital, Uma's slender hand accidentally knocks over a container of viscous nutrient paste. The gelatinous substance splatters across Christian's crisp white shirt. "Oh no, I'm so sorry," Uma exclaims, her skin flushing a deeper shade of purple. She reaches out to help clean the mess, her fingers brushing against Christian's chest. Suddenly, Uma freezes. Her nostrils flare as she detects an unfamiliar scent emanating from Christian's skin. Without warning, she leans in and runs her tongue along a bead of sweat on his neck. Christian jerks back, shocked by the intimate contact. "What are you?" His words are cut short as Uma's body begins to tremble violently. Her skin ripples with waves of color, shifting from purple to a deep indigo. With a soft gasp, she collapses to the ground. Christian kneels beside her, cradling her head in his lap. "Uma, are you all right? Someone get help." Uma's eyes flutter open, unfocused and dilated. She reaches up to touch Christian's face, her voice barely a whisper. "Your milk. It's incredible. How often can you produce it?" Christian's brow furrows in confusion. "Milk? I don't understand. That was just sweat." Uma sits up abruptly, her eyes wide with excitement. "You can secrete nourishing fluids from your skin at will? This changes everything." Before Christian can correct her misunderstanding, Uma leaps to her feet and rushes towards a group of nearby Packlet officials. Her voice carries across the landing pad as she shouts, "The humans! They produce life-giving milk from their skin. We must renegotiate our trade terms immediately." Christian watches in growing dismay as the Packlet officials turn to stare at him, their expressions a mix of awe and hunger. He realizes with a sinking feeling that this simple misunderstanding could derail the entire negotiation process. As Uma returns, her eyes locked on Christian with newfound intensity, he knows he faces a delicate balancing act. He must correct this misconception without offending the Packlets or jeopardizing the trade deal. And judging by the way Uma's gaze keeps drifting to his neck, he'll need to navigate her budding infatuation as well. Christian takes a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenging days ahead. The future of human-Packlet relations now hinges on his ability to explain the mundane nature of human perspiration and resist the alien allure of his beautiful, sweat-obsessed liaison. Christian's mind raced as he watched Uma disappear into the crowd of Packlet officials, her excited voice still ringing in his ears. He needed to act fast to prevent this misunderstanding from spiraling out of control. With a deep breath, he straightened his stained shirt and strode purposefully towards the group. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding that I need to address." The Packlet officials turned to face him, their eyes wide with curiosity and anticipation. Uma stood among them, her skin still shimmering with an intense indigo hue. "Perhaps we could schedule a meeting with the High Council to discuss this matter properly," Christian suggested, hoping to buy himself some time to formulate a clear explanation. Zorn, a tall Packlet with emerald skin, stepped forward. "An excellent idea, human Henderson. We shall convene immediately to discuss this miraculous discovery of yours." Before Christian could protest, he found himself being ushered towards the crystal spires of the Packlet capital. Uma fell into step beside him, her eyes never leaving his face. "I'm so excited for you to share your gift with our people," she whispered, her breath warm against his ear. Christian opened his mouth to respond, but the words died on his lips as they entered the imposing structure of the Packlet government building. The corridors were a maze of shimmering, translucent walls that seemed to shift and change as they walked. As they approached the council chambers, Christian's heart raced. He needed a moment alone to collect his thoughts and plan his approach. Spotting a side corridor, he turned to Uma. I just need a moment to prepare, he said, gesturing vaguely. Where can I find the nearest restroom? Uma pointed down the hallway. Third door on the left. Shall I accompany you? No, Christian blurted, perhaps too quickly. I mean, that won't be necessary. I'll only be a moment. He hurried down the corridor, his footsteps echoing off the crystalline walls. As he reached for the door handle of what he hoped was the restroom, a slender purple hand wrapped around his wrist. Christian, Uma's voice was low and intense. I can't wait any longer. I need to taste your milk again. Before he could react, Uma pulled him into a nearby storage closet, the door sliding shut behind them with a soft hiss. In the dim light, her skin seemed to glow, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Uma, please, Christian stammered, pressing himself against the wall. This isn't what you think. I need to explain. No explanations needed, Uma purred, leaning in close. Your body speaks volumes. Christian's mind reeled as he tried to find the words to diffuse the situation. It's not milk, Uma. It's just sweat. It's how humans regulate their body temperature. There's nothing special about it. Uma's brow furrowed in confusion. But the taste, the effect it had on me, that was likely an allergic reaction, Christian explained, seizing on the opportunity. Human biology is very different from Pakled physiology. What you experienced was probably a shock to your system. Uma's eyes widened as she processed this information. But it felt so intense, so intimate. Christian felt a pang of sympathy for the beautiful alien. I understand, but it wasn't what you thought it was. I'm sorry if I gave you the wrong impression. Just as Uma opened her mouth to respond, the storage closet door slid open with a whoosh. Christian's heart sank as he found himself face to face with a stocky Pakled male, his green skin darkening with what Christian assumed was shock. Grug, Uma exclaimed, her skin flushing a deeper purple. This isn't what it looks like. But Grug was already backing away, his eyes darting between Christian and Uma. I must inform the council immediately, he sputtered before turning and sprinting down the corridor. Christian groaned, running a hand through his hair. We need to stop him before he makes this situation even worse. Uma nodded, her earlier fervor replaced by perseverance. Follow me. I know a shortcut to the council chambers. As they raced through the twisting corridors of the Pakled Capitol building, Christian's mind whirled with possible explanations and damage control strategies. He could only hope that he would find the right words to undo this cascade of misunderstandings before it was too late. The crystal doors of the council chambers loomed before them, voices raised in excited discussion, already audible from within. Christian squared his shoulders, preparing himself for what promised to be the most challenging, diplomatic encounter of his career. With a deep breath, he pushed open the doors and stepped into the fray, Uma close behind him. The scene that greeted them was one of barely controlled chaos. Pakled officials gesticulated wildly, their skin flickering through a rainbow of colors as they debated. At the center of it all stood Grug, animatedly describing what he had witnessed in the storage closet. Zorn, the head of the agricultural ministry, spotted Christian and Uma as they entered. His eyes lit up with an unsettling gleam. Ah, Human Henderson, we were just discussing the incredible potential of your species' milk production capabilities. Christian opened his mouth to interject, but his voice was lost in the cacophony of excited Pakled voices. He watched in growing dismay as Zorn outlined plans for human milk farms, while other council members chimed in with ideas for distribution and marketing. Uma, still flustered from their encounter in the closet, inadvertently made matters worse. It's true, she exclaimed. I've tasted it myself. The effects are extraordinary. The council chamber erupted into even louder discussions, with Christian's attempts to explain drowned out by the enthusiastic Pakled officials. He looked around desperately, searching for a way to capture their attention and set the record straight. His eyes fell on a water dispenser in the corner of the room, and an idea began to form. Christian's eyes darted between the water dispenser and the chaotic scene before him. With a sudden burst of inspiration, he strode purposefully towards the dispenser, grabbed a glass, and filled it to the brim. Holding it high above his head, he shouted, "Esteemed members of the council, please allow me to demonstrate." The room fell silent as all eyes turned to Christian. He took a deep breath, then poured the water over his head in one swift motion. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd as the liquid cascaded down his face and neck, soaking his already stained shirt. "This," Christian declared, wiping his face with his sleeve, "is what you witnessed earlier. It's not milk, but sweat, a natural cooling mechanism for humans. When our bodies overheat, we produce this watery substance to regulate our temperature." Uma's eyes widened with understanding, her skin shifting to a pale lavender. "So it's not a nutritional fluid at all?" Christian shook his head, droplets of water flying from his damp hair. "No, it's simply water and salts. Useful for cooling, but not for consumption." Zorn stepped forward, his emerald skin pulsing with curiosity. "Fascinating. And this sweat is produced all over your body?" "Yes," Christian confirmed, fighting the urge to squirm under the intense scrutiny of the Packlet officials. "It's a natural process that helps us survive in various climates on Earth." The council members huddled together, their voices a low hum of discussion. Christian stood, dripping and uncomfortable, as he awaited their response. After what felt like an eternity, Zorn turned back to address him. "Human Henderson, while we are disappointed that your species does not produce the miraculous substance we initially believed, we are intrigued by your ability to adapt and problem solve. Perhaps there is still much we can learn from one another." Christian's heart leapt with hope. "I couldn't agree more, Minister Zorn. In fact, I'd be honored to share more about Earth's agricultural practices and how we've adapted to our planet's diverse environments." Zorn's skin rippled with excitement. "An excellent suggestion. We shall arrange a series of cultural exchange sessions to explore these topics further." As the council members began to disperse, chattering animatedly about the possibilities, Christian allowed himself a small sigh of relief. The crisis had been averted, but he knew the real work was just beginning. Uma approached him, her earlier fervor replaced by a mix of embarrassment and curiosity. "I apologize for my misconceptions, Christian. I hope you can forgive my behavior." Christian offered her a warm smile. "There's nothing to forgive, Uma. Cultural misunderstandings are bound to happen. What's important is that we learn from them." Uma's skin brightened to a vibrant purple. "Indeed, I look forward to learning more about your species during these exchange sessions." As they exited the council chambers, Christian's mind was already racing with ideas for his first presentation. He had successfully navigated this initial hurdle, but he knew that building a strong foundation for human-Packlet relations would require patience, understanding, and a willingness to embrace the unexpected. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Christian worked tirelessly, compiling information on Earth's agriculture and adapting his presentation to suit the Packlet's unique perspective. When the day of the first exchange session arrived, he made his way to the sprawling botanical garden within the Packlet capital city, his arms laden with equipment and models. The garden was a marvel of alien horticulture, with crystalline trees that seemed to sing in the breeze and flowers that changed colors as he walked past. Christian busied himself setting up his presentation, carefully arranging models of Earth's irrigation systems. As he worked, he noticed Uma enter the garden, her purple skin glistening in the artificial sunlight that filtered through the crystal canopy above. She approached him with a hesitant smile, her earlier embarrassment still evident in her body language. "Good morning, Christian," she said, her voice soft. "I hope I'm not interrupting your preparations." Christian straightened up, returning her smile. "Not at all, Uma. I'm just about finished setting up." Uma's eyes roamed over the models with undisguised curiosity. "These systems look fascinating. I'm eager to learn more about how humans have adapted to cultivate their world." "I'm glad to hear that," Christian replied, feeling a surge of optimism. "And I want you to know that I appreciate your mature response to our misunderstanding. It speaks volumes about your character and your commitment to this cultural exchange." Uma's skin flushed a deeper purple, but her smile widened. "Thank you, Christian. Would it be possible to speak with you privately after the presentation? I have so many questions about human biology and culture that I'd like to ask in a less formal setting. Christian nodded, noticing Zorn entering the garden from the corner of his eye. Of course, Uma. I'd be happy to chat with you afterward. As Uma took her seat in the front row, Christian couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and apprehension. He had successfully navigated one cultural minefield, but he knew that in the complex dance of interspecies diplomacy, there were bound to be many more challenges ahead. With a deep breath, he turned to face the gathering crowd of Packlets, ready to bridge the gap between their worlds, one irrigation system at a time. At TIA time, as Christian concluded his presentation on Earth's irrigation systems, a round of enthusiastic applause filled the botanical garden. The Packlet officials' skin rippled with various hues, indicating their excitement and interest in the human approach to agriculture. Zorn approached Christian, his emerald skin pulsing with enthusiasm. "Human Henderson, your presentation was most illuminating. We believe there is much more we can learn from your species." Christian smiled, relief washing over him. "Thank you, Minister Zorn. I'm eager to continue our cultural exchange." "Excellent," Zorn replied. "In fact, we have a unique opportunity for you to experience our agricultural practices firsthand. Would you be interested in participating in our traditional Harvest of Light ceremony?" Christian's eyes widened with curiosity. "I'd be honored, Minister. What does this ceremony entail?" Before Zorn could answer, Uma stepped forward. "If you'll allow me, Minister, I'd be happy to explain the details to Christian and serve as his guide for the ceremony." Zorn nodded approvingly. "A splendid idea. Uma, you are hereby appointed as Christian's permanent liaison for the duration of our cultural exchange program." As the gathered Packlets dispersed, Uma turned to Christian, her purple skin shimmering with excitement. "The Harvest of Light is one of our most sacred agricultural traditions. It takes place in a vast underground cavern where we collect spores from bioluminescent fungi." Christian listened intently as Uma explained the ceremony's significance. As they made their way to the cavern entrance, he found himself captivated by her enthusiasm and knowledge. The moment they stepped into the cavern, Christian's breath caught in his throat. The entire space was bathed in an ethereal blue glow, emanating from countless fungi covering the walls and ceiling. The sight was unlike anything he had ever seen on Earth. "It's beautiful," he whispered, his voice filled with awe. Uma smiled, her skin taking on a softer hue in the blue light. "Come, let me show you how we collect the spores." She led him to a patch of particularly vibrant fungi and demonstrated the gentle brushing technique used to gather the spores into specialized containers. As they worked side by side, their hands occasionally brushed against each other, sending unexpected tingles through Christian's body. "Like this?" Christian asked, mimicking Uma's movements. "Perfect," she replied, her voice soft. "You're a natural at this, Christian." As they moved deeper into the cavern, Christian found himself becoming increasingly aware of Uma's presence. The close proximity and shared task fostered a growing intimacy between them that he hadn't anticipated. Suddenly, a gust of air from a nearby vent sent a cloud of spores billowing towards them. Christian inadvertently inhaled a large quantity before he could step back. "Christian!" Uma exclaimed, concern evident in her voice. "Are you all right?" But Christian was already feeling the effects of the spores. The world around him began to shift and warp. Uma's form seemed to blur and transform before his eyes, her purple skin giving way to pure, radiant light. "Uma," he breathed, his voice filled with wonder. You're so beautiful. I've never seen anything like you." Unbeknownst to Christian, his words were being broadcast to all ceremony participants through a telepathic field generated by the fungi. Uma's skin flushed a deep violet as she realized what was happening. "Christian," she said gently, guiding him to a safe area, "you've inhaled some spores. They're causing you to hallucinate. Just try to relax and breathe slowly." As Christian's vision swam with impossible colors and shapes, he found himself pouring out his heart to Uma. "I never expected to feel this way about someone from another species," he said, his inhibitions lowered by the spore's effects. "But there's something special about you, Uma. Something I can't ignore." Uma listened, her heart racing as Christian unknowingly confessed his growing feelings for her. She helped him sit down on a smooth stone formation, keeping a steadying hand on his arm. As the hallucinatory effects began to fade, Christian became aware of the multitude of Packlet eyes fixed upon him. Embarrassment washed over him as he realized the impact of his unintended emotional outburst. Before he could attempt to explain or apologize, Zorn approached, his skin pulsing with an intensity Christian hadn't seen before. "Human Henderson," Zorn began, his voice filled with reverence. "The spores have revealed a profound connection between you and Uma. This could be the key to strengthening our interspecies relations." Christian blinked, still trying to clear his head. "I'm not sure I understand, Minister Zorn." Zorn's eyes gleamed with excitement. "We propose that you and Uma undergo our traditional bonding ritual. It will enhance your ability to work together on our agricultural projects and cement the alliance between our peoples." Christian glanced at Uma, noting the mix of hope and apprehension in her eyes. Still disoriented from the spores and embarrassed by his unintended confession, he found himself nodding hesitantly. I suppose I'm willing to participate," he said, his voice uncertain. Uma's skin brightened with joy as she quickly agreed to the proposal. The gathered Packlets erupted in a chorus of approving hums and color changes. As the implications of what he had just agreed to began to sink in, Christian felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. He had no idea what this bonding ritual entailed or how it might affect his role as a diplomat. Yet as he looked at Uma, he couldn't deny the growing warmth he felt in her presence. Zorn began outlining the preparations for the ritual, his words blurring together as Christian's mind raced. He had come to the Packlet world to negotiate trade agreements, and now he found himself at the center of an unprecedented interspecies cultural exchange. As they made their way out of the cavern, Christian's communicator buzzed insistently. Messages from Earth's diplomatic corps flooded in, their urgent tones a clear indication that news of the impending bonding ritual had already spread. Christian took a deep breath, realizing that his actions in the coming days would have far-reaching consequences for both human and Packlet societies. He glanced at Uma, who offered him a reassuring smile, and felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that his journey on this alien world was far from finished. The Harvest of Light ceremony had illuminated a path he never expected to walk, and now he had to navigate the complex intersection of diplomacy, personal feelings, and interspecies relations. Christian's head spun as he stepped out of the cavern, the effects of the spores still lingering in his system. Uma's steady hand on his arm provided a comforting anchor amidst the whirlwind of events that had just transpired. The urgent buzzing of his communicator cut through the haze, demanding his attention. As he scrolled through the flood of messages from Earth's diplomatic corps, his stomach tightened. The implications of what he had agreed to in his spore-induced state began to sink in. He glanced at Uma, her purple skin shimmering with excitement, and felt a mix of affection and apprehension. Before he could fully process the situation, they were whisked away to begin preparations for the bonding ritual. Christian found himself in the capable but stern hands of Glix, a male Packlet cultural expert assigned to guide him through the intricate customs. "Human Henderson," Glix said, his voice crisp and businesslike, "we must begin the purification process immediately. Follow me." Christian was led deep into the Packlet caverns, the winding tunnels opening up into a vast chamber housing a steaming hot spring. The air was thick with mineral-laden vapor, and Christian's skin prickled with anticipation. "Submerge yourself completely," Glix instructed. "The waters will cleanse both your body and spirit." Taking a deep breath, Christian stepped into the spring. The warm water enveloped him, and he felt a tingling sensation spread across his skin. As he submerged himself fully, something unexpected happened. His skin began to emit a faint, iridescent glow. Glix's eyes widened in surprise. "This is unprecedented," he muttered, his usual composure slipping for a moment. As Christian emerged from the spring, he noticed the glow persisting. Packlet attendants rushed forward, murmuring excitedly among themselves. Word of this phenomenon spread quickly through the caverns, and soon a crowd had gathered to witness the glowing human. Meanwhile, Uma was sequestered in a meditation chamber, communing with her ancestral spirits. Her eyes were closed, her breathing slow and steady as she delved deep into a trance-like state. Suddenly, a vivid vision unfolded before her. She saw humans and Pakleds working side by side, their combined efforts leading to remarkable advancements in agriculture and technology. The vision filled her with a sense of purpose and strengthened her persistence to proceed with the bonding. Back in the hot spring chamber, Christian's unexpected reaction to the sacred waters had sparked a heated debate among the Pakled officials present. Some saw it as a divine sign of approval for the human-Pakled union, while others interpreted it as a warning of incompatibility. Before the debate could escalate further, Dr. Eliza Simmons arrived, having been dispatched by Earth's diplomatic corps to assess the situation. Her eyes widened as she took in Christian's glowing appearance. "Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice filled with a mix of concern and scientific curiosity, "I need to conduct a thorough medical examination immediately." The Pakled High Council reluctantly agreed to the examination, but insisted it be conducted under their supervision. Christian found himself in a sterile medical facility, surrounded by a tense mix of human and Pakled medical professionals. As Dr. Simmons ran her tests, Christian could feel the weight of two worlds' expectations pressing down on him. The air in the room was thick with tension as human and Pakled physicians argued over every procedure. "This is fascinating," Dr. Simmons muttered as she analyzed the results. "The mineral composition of the spring has interacted with your biochemistry in a way we've never seen before. It's altered your pheromone production significantly." Christian's mind raced as he processed this information. "What does that mean for me? For the bonding ritual?" Before Dr. Simmons could answer, the door burst open and Minister Zorn entered, followed by a group of Pakled officials. "We must discuss the implications of these findings immediately," Zorn declared, his skin pulsing with an intense green hue. As the debate raged on around him, Christian's thoughts turned to Uma. He needed to see her, to talk to her about everything that had happened. Despite the protocols surrounding the bonding ritual preparations, he requested a private meeting with her. To his surprise, the request was granted. Christian was led to a small, dimly lit chamber where Uma waited. As he entered, the faint glow of his skin illuminated her features, casting an otherworldly light on her purple skin. "Christian," Uma breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "You're glowing." He stepped closer to her, acutely aware of the charged atmosphere between them. "Uma, I need to talk to you about everything that's happened, about this ritual, about us." Uma's expression softened, and she reached out to take his hand. As their fingers intertwined, Christian felt a jolt of electricity run through him, and his skin's glow intensified. "I had a vision," Uma said softly, her eyes locked on his. "I saw a future where our people work together, where we achieve great things. But Christian, I need to know if that's what you want too." Christian took a deep breath, feeling the weight of two worlds resting on his next words. He opened his mouth to speak, his heart racing as he prepared to make a decision that could change the course of human-Pakled relations forever. Christian's heart raced as he gazed into Uma's eyes, the soft glow of his skin illuminating the small chamber. He took a deep breath, his mind made up. "Uma, I want this too. I believe in the future you saw, and I want to be part of it," he said, his voice steady despite the enormity of the decision. Uma's skin rippled with a wave of vibrant purple, her joy palpable. "Then let's face this together, Christian," she said, squeezing his hand. They emerged from the chamber, hand in hand, to face the assembled Pakled High Council and Earth representatives. The room fell silent as Christian cleared his throat. "We've decided to proceed with the bonding ritual," he announced, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "However, we propose modifications to address the concerns raised by Dr. Simmons's findings." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Minister Zorn stepped forward, his skin pulsing with curiosity. "What modifications do you suggest, Human Henderson?" For the next few hours, the chamber buzzed with intense discussions. Dr. Simmons, Earth's diplomatic team, and the Pakled High Council worked tirelessly to design a modified version of the bonding ritual. The goal was to create a symbolic link between Christian and Uma, while minimizing unknown physiological effects. As the details were hammered out, Christian found himself at the center of a flurry of activity. A team of PAC-led biotechnologists, supervised by Dr. Simmons, began developing a special protective suit for him to wear during the ceremony. This suit will allow limited biochemical interaction, Dr. Simmons explained, holding up a translucent material that shimmered in the light. But it will prevent any permanent changes to your physiology, Christian. Meanwhile, Uma was whisked away to undergo a series of treatments designed to temporarily reduce her sensitivity to Christian's altered pheromones. As she lay on a biobed, surrounded by humming PAC-led medical equipment, she couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. The news of the impending ceremony spread quickly. The PAC-led homeworld transformed into a hive of activity as delegates from various colonies arrived to witness the historic event. Earth sent a small delegation of diplomats and scientists, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern as they stepped off their transport. The day before the ceremony, Christian and Uma were reviewing the final preparations when an urgent message came through. A group of PAC-led separatists, vehemently opposed to any alliance with Earth, had released a swarm of genetically modified insects into the sacred cavern where the ceremony was to take place. The insects are designed to disrupt the bioluminescent fungi, a PAC-led scientist explained, his skin pale with worry. Without the fungi, the ritual cannot proceed. Christian's mind raced. He turned to Uma, seeing the same grit in her eyes that he felt. "We need to stop these insects," he said, "and I think I have an idea." For the next several hours, Christian, Uma, and a team of PAC-led scientists worked feverishly to develop a countermeasure. Christian drew on his knowledge of Earth's pest control methods, while Uma provided crucial insights into PAC-led biotechnology. As they worked side by side, Christian felt their bond growing stronger. It went beyond the biochemical attraction, becoming a true partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Their solution was elegant in its simplicity, a harmless pheromone that would confuse the insects' navigation systems, causing them to leave the cavern without harming the delicate ecosystem. As they released the pheromone into the cavern, Christian and Uma watched with nervous excitement. Slowly but surely, the swarm of insects began to disperse, leaving the glowing fungi untouched. The success of their impromptu mission did not go unnoticed. Even some of the more skeptical members of both species were impressed by this display of human PAC-led collaboration. As the sun rose on the day of the ceremony, Christian stood before a mirror, examining the protective suit he would wear. The translucent material had been adorned with intricate PAC-led symbols, a beautiful fusion of function and tradition. Uma entered the room, her purple skin glowing with a soft radiance. The treatments had worked. She could look at Christian without feeling overwhelmed by his altered pheromones. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice a mix of excitement and nervousness. Christian nodded, taking her hand. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied with a smile. They made their way to the sacred cavern, now restored to its full glory. The bioluminescent fungi cast a soft, ethereal light over the assembled crowd. As Christian and Uma stepped into the ritual circle, a hush fell over the audience. The modified bonding ritual began, a carefully choreographed dance of PAC-led tradition and scientific precaution. As they moved through the steps, Christian felt a strange sensation building within him. He glanced at Uma and saw that she felt it too. Suddenly, a soft, pulsating light began to form between them. It grew stronger with each passing moment, bridging the gap between their bodies. Gasps of awe and surprise echoed through the cavern. Dr. Simmons and her PAC-led counterparts rushed to analyze the unexpected phenomenon, their instruments whirring frantically. But Christian and Uma were lost in the moment, their eyes locked as the energy field expanded around them. As the ritual reached its climax, the light enveloped them completely. For a brief, breathtaking moment, Christian felt as if he could sense Uma's thoughts, her emotions, her very essence. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the light dissipated, leaving them standing hand in hand, forever changed. The cavern erupted in a cacophony of voices as both humans and PAC-leds tried to make sense of what they had just witnessed. Christian and Uma stood at the center of it all, their newfound connection humming between them like a living thing. As Dr. Simmons approached with her medical scanner, Christian knew that this was only the beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he and Uma would face them together, their unique bond a testament to the potential of human-Pakled relations. The scanner beeped, and Dr. Simmons's eyes widened as she read the results. "Christian," she said, her voice filled with a mix of awe and concern, "you're not going to believe this." "Christian," she said, her voice filled with a mix of awe and concern, "you're not going to believe this. Your cellular structure has undergone a significant alteration. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before." Christian felt a wave of dizziness wash over him as he processed Dr. Simmons's words. He looked at Uma, who squeezed his hand reassuringly, her purple skin pulsing with concern. "What does that mean, Doctor?" Christian asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Before Dr. Simmons could respond, a team of Pakled scientists rushed forward, their instruments whirring and beeping as they scanned both Christian and Uma. The cavern erupted into a flurry of activity as human and Pakled researchers alike clamored to examine the newly bonded couple. Over the next few days, Christian and Uma found themselves at the center of intense scientific scrutiny. A joint human Pakled research team, led by Dr. Simmons and Pakled xenobiologist Zax, established a temporary laboratory in the sacred cavern to study the mysterious energy field that had manifested during the ceremony. Christian lay on a biobed, electrodes attached to his temples, as Dr. Simmons monitored his brainwave patterns. Uma sat nearby, undergoing similar tests conducted by Zax. The air hummed with the sound of medical equipment and excited chatter in both English and the Pakled language. "This is extraordinary," Dr. Simmons muttered, her eyes fixed on the holographic display hovering above Christian. "Your brainwave patterns are showing partial synchronization with Uma's. It's as if your neural networks are attempting to align themselves." Zax, his green skin rippling with excitement, added, "We're detecting similar changes in Uma's neurophysiology. The bonding ritual has created a unique empathic link between you two." Christian turned his head to look at Uma, and in that moment, he felt a surge of her emotions, a mix of wonder, apprehension, and deep affection. Uma's eyes widened, and he knew she had sensed his feelings too. As news of this breakthrough spread, the Pakled homeworld experienced a surge of interstellar attention. Delegations from various alien species began arriving, eager to witness the results of human-Pakled bonding firsthand. The once quiet streets of the capital city now buzzed with activity as beings from across the galaxy converged on the planet. Christian and Uma found themselves thrust into the spotlight, their every move scrutinized by curious onlookers and ambitious researchers. The constant attention and barrage of tests began to take their toll, and they longed for a moment of peace to explore their newfound connection. One evening, as they sat in their quarters, exhausted from another day of examinations, Uma turned to Christian with drive in her eyes. "We need to get away from all this," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. "I know a place where we can find some solitude." Christian nodded, feeling her desire for escape as if it were his own. "Lead the way," he said, taking her hand. Under the cover of night, they slipped away from the research facility and boarded a small Pakled transport vessel. Uma piloted the craft expertly, guiding it through the planet's swirling atmosphere until they reached a vast, untamed wilderness far from the capital. As they stepped out of the vessel, Christian gasped in awe. Before them stretched a lush landscape of bioluminescent flora, pulsing with soft, ethereal light. Uma led him along a winding path, their way illuminated by the gentle glow of the surrounding vegetation. "This is a protected nature reserve," Uma explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "Few Pakleds ever visit here. I thought it would be the perfect place for us to connect." As they ventured deeper into the reserve, Christian began to notice something strange. The plants around them seemed to react to their presence, their luminescence intensifying as they passed. He glanced at Uma and saw the same realization dawning on her face. Closing his eyes, Christian focused on the empathic link he shared with Uma. To his amazement, he began to sense not just her emotions, but also a faint, alien consciousness emanating from the surrounding flora. Uma's gasp told him she was experiencing the same phenomenon. "Christian," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "Can you feel it? The plants, They're communicating with us. For hours they explored the reserve, marveling at their newfound ability to interact with the local ecosystem. They discovered hidden groves of fruit-bearing trees, guided by the subtle signals of the plant life around them. They communicated wordlessly with small, bioluminescent creatures that scurried through the underbrush, learning of hidden water sources and fertile soil deposits. As dawn broke, casting the alien landscape in a soft, pink light, Christian and Uma sat on a hilltop overlooking the reserve. Their minds buzzed with the implications of their discovery. "This changes everything," Uma said, her skin pulsing with excitement. "Think of what this could mean for our agriculture, our entire way of life." Christian nodded, his diplomatic mind already racing with possibilities. "We need to present this to the High Council," he said, "but we'll have to be careful. This kind of revelation could be seen as a threat by some." As they began to formulate a plan to share their discovery, neither of them realized that their absence had been noticed. Back in the capital, alarms were sounding, and a search party was being organized. Among the new arrivals to the planet was a team of Earth's counterintelligence specialists, led by the stern Colonel Hawthorne, who viewed Christian's disappearance with deep suspicion. As Christian and Uma made their way back to the transport vessel, ready to return and share their groundbreaking discovery, they were unaware of the political storm brewing on the horizon. Their unique bond, a bridge between two species, was about to face its greatest test yet. As Christian and Uma made their way back to the transport vessel, a sudden wave of unease washed over them. Christian paused, his hand tightening around Uma's. "Do you feel that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Uma nodded, her purple skin pulsing with concern. "It's like a disturbance in the planet's energy. Something's not right." They exchanged a look of understanding, their empathic link humming with shared anxiety. Without another word, they quickened their pace, rushing back to the vessel with renewed urgency. As they approached the Pakled capital, the sky above them flickered with an eerie, shimmering light. Uma's eyes widened as she piloted the craft through the turbulent atmosphere. "Christian, look!" she exclaimed, pointing to the ship's sensors. "These readings, they're off the charts. It's as if the planet's magnetic field is fluctuating wildly." Christian leaned in, his diplomatic training kicking into high gear. "We need to warn the authorities. This could be catastrophic for both our peoples." They landed amid a flurry of activity. The streets of the capital were buzzing with tension, and as they disembarked, they were immediately confronted by a stern-faced human in a military uniform. "Ambassador Young," the man said, his voice clipped and cold. "I'm Colonel Hawthorne. You have a lot of explaining to do." Before Christian could respond, a group of PAC-led officials approached, led by a member of the High Council. The air crackled with unspoken accusations and suspicion. Christian stepped forward, his voice calm but urgent. "Colonel, council members, we don't have time for this. There's an imminent threat to the planet that requires our immediate attention." His words were met with skeptical glances and murmurs of disbelief. Colonel Hawthorne's eyes narrowed. "Is that so? Or is this just another ploy to avoid returning to Earth?" Uma interjected, her skin flashing with frustration. "This is no ploy. We've sensed a disturbance in the planet's electromagnetic field. A geomagnetic storm is coming, and we need to prepare." The Pakled Council member scoffed. "And we're supposed to take the word of a human in a compromise, Pakled?" Christian and Uma exchanged a glance, realizing that their words alone wouldn't be enough to convince the skeptical authorities. They needed proof, and they needed it fast. "Dr. Simmons," Christian called out, spotting the scientist in the crowd. "We need your help, and Zax," he added, nodding to the PAC-led xenobiologist. "We have an idea, but we'll need both of you to make it work." Over the next 2 days, Christian, Uma, Dr. Simmons, and Zax worked tirelessly in a makeshift laboratory. They combined Earth technology with PAC-led bioengineering, creating a device that could amplify and visualize Christian and Uma's empathic link with the planet's ecosystem. The result was a large, spherical apparatus that hummed with energy. Neural interfaces dangled from its core, waiting to connect with Christian and Uma's minds. As they prepared to enter the device, Dr. Simmons placed a hand on Christian's shoulder. This is untested technology, she warned. We don't know what effect it might have on your bond. Christian nodded, his eyes meeting Uma's. We understand the risks, but we have to try. They stepped into the sphere, the neural interfaces connecting to their temples with a soft click. As the device powered up, Christian felt a surge of energy course through him. Uma's presence in his mind intensified, their thoughts merging into a single consciousness. The laboratory fell silent as a holographic projection flickered to life above the sphere. It showed the Pakled star system in stunning detail, with massive solar flares erupting from the central star. Colonel Hawthorne and the Pakled High Council members watched in stunned silence as waves of charged particles hurtled towards their planet. The projected impact was devastating, threatening to disable all electronic systems and wreak havoc on both Pakled and human installations. By the stars, whispered one of the council members. This is real. Colonel Hawthorne's stern facade cracked, revealing a flicker of fear. How long do we have? Dr. Simmons consulted the readouts. Based on these projections, less than 72 hours before the storm hits. The room erupted into a flurry of activity as the reality of the situation sank in. Colonel Hawthorne and the Pakled High Council quickly assembled a joint task force, setting aside their previous animosity in the face of this common threat. Inside the sphere, Christian and Uma remained connected, their merged consciousness exploring the planet's ecosystem with newfound clarity. They discovered vast networks of deep-rooted fungi capable of absorbing and redistributing electromagnetic energy. We can use these fungal networks, Uma's voice echoed in their shared mind. They could form a planet-wide shield against the storm. Christian agreed, but as they delved deeper into the planet's systems, he felt a twinge of unease. Their empathic link was intensifying rapidly, their individual thoughts and memories blurring together. Outside the sphere, Dr. Simmons noticed the change in their neural patterns. Their brainwaves are synchronizing at an alarming rate, she reported to Zax. If this continues, we might not be able to separate them. Zax's skin rippled with concern. We must warn them. The fate of our worlds may depend on their bond, but at what cost to their individual selves? As the task force raced to implement the protection plan, Christian and Uma remained at the heart of the efforts, their merged consciousness guiding the activation of the planet's natural defenses. Time was running out, and the price of their sacrifice was yet to be determined. As the final waves of the geomagnetic storm subsided, the amplification device hummed with residual energy, its occupants still locked in a profound mental merger. Dr. Simmons rushed to the control panel, her fingers flying over the interface as she monitored Christian and Uma's vital signs. They're stable, but completely unresponsive, she reported, her voice tight with concern. We need to get them out of there now. Sachs moved to her side, his skin pulsing with a mix of anxiety and tenacity. Their neural patterns are unlike anything I've ever seen, he said, studying the readouts. It's as if their minds have become one with the planet's fungal network. Colonel Hawthorne, who had been overseeing the storm mitigation efforts, strode into the lab. His earlier skepticism had given way to a grudging respect for the human-Pakled collaboration. What's their status? He demanded. Dr. Simmons shook her head. Critical. If we don't separate them soon, we risk permanent damage to their individual psyches. The medical team worked tirelessly, attempting various methods to safely disconnect Christian and Uma from the device. Hours passed with no success, each failed attempt increasing the palpable tension in the room. As dawn broke over the Pakled capital, Dr. Simmons made a breakthrough. Analyzing data from the bonding ritual, she noticed a unique property in the bioluminescent fungi used during the ceremony. These fungi emit a specific frequency that might help disentangle their merged consciousness, she explained to the team. Zax's eyes widened with realization. The nutrient paste, he exclaimed. If we combine it with trace elements of Christian sweat, it could serve as an anchor for their individual identities. The team sprang into action, converting a section of the sacred cavern into a makeshift medical bay. They carefully cultivated a bed of bioluminescent fungi surrounding the still unresponsive bodies of Christian and Uma. As they prepared for the risky procedure, A low rumble shook the cavern. The fungal network pulsed with an eerie, synchronized light. Dr. Simmons frowned, checking her instruments. "This is impossible," she muttered. "The network, it's showing signs of sentience." Zax moved closer to the writhing mass of fungi. "It's as if Christian and Uma's merged consciousness has awakened something within the planet itself," he said, his voice filled with awe and trepidation. As they watched, tendrils of fungi began to creep towards Christian and Uma, enveloping their bodies in a protective cocoon. The medical team's attempts to intervene were met with increased resistance from the network. Dr. Simmons turned to Zax, her face pale. "We need to establish communication with this planetary consciousness. It's the only way we'll be able to extract Christian and Uma." Zax nodded gravely. "We'll need to use the amplification device one last time. But whoever attempts the connection risks being absorbed into the network themselves." A hush fell over the cavern as the implications sank in. Then a voice broke the silence. "I'll do it," said Zorn, stepping forward. The pack-led diplomat's face was set with perseverance. "This is our chance to prove our commitment to the Alliance." Despite protests from the High Council members present, Zorn approached the amplification device. As the neural interfaces connected to his temples, he took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. The cavern filled with a low hum as the device powered up. Zorn's body went rigid, his eyes rolling back in his head as his mind connected with the vast fungal network. For several tense minutes, there was no response. Then Zorn began to speak, his voice a strange blend of his own and something utterly alien. "The planet, it's alive," he gasped. "It's been awakened by Christian and Uma's merger. It doesn't want to let them go." Dr. Simmons leaned in, her voice urgent. "Zorn, you need to convince it. Explain that we must separate them, or we'll lose them both." Zorn's face contorted with effort as he silently communicated with the planetary consciousness. The fungi around them pulsed and writhed, reflecting the intensity of the unseen negotiation. Minutes stretched into hours as Zorn fought to persuade the awakened planet. The medical team stood ready, the modified nutrient paste prepared, waiting for their chance to attempt the separation procedure. As the first rays of the planet's second sun peeked over the horizon, Zorn's eyes snapped open. "Now," he shouted. "It's agreed to release them, but only for a moment. We have to act fast." Dr. Simmons and Zax sprang into action, their hands steady as they began the delicate process of separating Christian and Uma's intertwined consciousnesses. The bioluminescent fungi pulsed in rhythm with their efforts, lending its alien energy to the procedure. As they worked, the fate of the star-crossed lovers hung in the balance. The success or failure of this bold strategy would not only determine their individual futures, but also shape the course of human-pack-led relations for generations to come. And looming over it all was the newly awakened planetary consciousness, its vast, inscrutable intentions yet to be fully understood. Understood. The fate of Christian and Uma hung in the balance as Dr. Simmons and Zax initiated their daring separation procedure. The sacred cavern buzzed with tense energy as the medical team positioned Christian and Uma's unresponsive bodies at the center of the bioluminescent fungi bed. The modified packlet nutrient paste, infused with trace elements of Christian sweat, surrounded them in a gleaming circle. Dr. Simmons took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the control panel. "Initiating light pulse sequence," she announced, her voice steady despite the pressure. The cavern erupted in a mesmerizing display of light as the fungi responded to the carefully calibrated pulses. Intricate patterns danced across the rocky walls, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that matched the gravity of the situation. Zax's eyes darted between the couple and the monitoring equipment. "I'm detecting increased neural activity," he reported, his skin rippling with cautious optimism. As the procedure progressed, Christian and Uma's bodies began to show signs of life. Their fingers twitched and their eyelids fluttered, eliciting gasps from the onlookers. However, the moment of hope was short-lived as their vital signs suddenly went haywire. "Heart rates are spiking," Dr. Simmons called out, her hands flying over the controls. "Blood pressure's all over the place. We need to stabilize them." Zax leaned in, his brow furrowed in concentration. There's an unexpected reaction occurring, he said, gesturing to the nutrient paste. The mixture is producing some kind of pheromone-like substance. Before they could fully process this new development, Christian's body arched off the ground, his mouth open in a silent scream. Uma followed suit a split second later, their movements eerily synchronized. The medical team scrambled to respond, but their efforts seemed futile as the couple's vital signs continued to deteriorate. Dr. Simmons' mind raced, searching for a solution amidst the chaos. Increase the concentration of Christian's sweat compounds in the paste, she ordered, her voice cutting through the panic. Double it now. As the team rushed to comply, Dr. Simmons turned to Zax. It's a long shot, but the unique human biochemistry might be the key to anchoring their individual identities. They watched with suspenseful pause as the enhanced mixture was applied to Christian and Uma's skin. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing changed. Then gradually their violent reactions began to subside. Their breathing steadied, and the erratic spikes on the monitoring equipment began to level out. It's working, Zax whispered, his skin pulsing with relief. Their brainwave patterns are differentiating. Meanwhile, Zorn remained connected to the planetary consciousness through the amplification device, his face contorted with effort as he silently communicated with the vast, alien intelligence. Through a series of abstract impressions and emotions, he conveyed the critical importance of releasing Christian and Uma. The sentient fungal network, grappling with concepts of individuality and sacrifice, finally acquiesced. A ripple of understanding passed through the cavern, felt by all present on a level beyond the physical. With the planetary consciousness's cooperation, the separation process accelerated. Christian and Uma's eyes snapped open simultaneously, both gasping for air as if breaking the surface after a deep dive. We need to run a full battery of tests, Dr. Simmons said, already moving towards the couple. Let's assess their cognitive functions and check for any lingering neural entanglement. As the medical team swarmed around Christian and Uma, Colonel Hawthorne entered the cavern, his face a mix of concern and relief. How are they? He asked, his earlier skepticism replaced by genuine worry. Dr. Simmons looked up from her examination, a cautious smile on her face. They've regained consciousness and appear to be stable, but there are some unexpected developments. Christian sat up slowly, his eyes wide with wonder. I can feel it, he murmured, his voice hoarse. The planet, it's alive. And Uma. He turned to look at her, their eyes locking in a moment of profound understanding. Uma nodded, her skin shimmering with a range of emotions. We're connected still, not like before, but I can sense your feelings, your thoughts. As the implications of their altered state began to sink in, the cavern erupted into a flurry of activity. Scientists eagerly documented the couple's heightened empathic abilities and their newfound understanding of the Pakled ecosystem. Diplomats huddled in corners, discussing the potential impact on interspecies relations. Amidst the chaos, Christian and Uma found a moment of quiet. They sat together, hands intertwined, marveling at the depth of their connection. What do we do now? Uma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Christian squeezed her hand, his eyes scanning the bustling cavern. I'm not sure, but whatever comes next, we'll face it together. As if in response to his words, a faint glow caught their attention. At the far end of the cavern, a previously unnoticed opening had appeared, pulsing with bioluminescent light. Christian and Uma exchanged a glance, their newfound connection humming with shared curiosity and apprehension. Without a word, they rose and began to make their way towards the mysterious opening, drawn by an instinct they couldn't explain. As they approached, the sound of excited whispers and hurried footsteps behind them indicated that their movement had not gone unnoticed. The hidden chamber beckoned, its secrets waiting to be uncovered. Christian and Uma stood at the threshold, poised to take the next step in their extraordinary journey. As Christian and Uma stepped into the hidden chamber, the air around them shimmered with an otherworldly energy. The walls were covered in intricate glyphs, their patterns pulsing with a faint, mesmerizing light. Sana, these markings, Uma breathed, her fingers hovering just above the surface. They're speaking to me. Christian nodded, feeling the same resonance through their shared connection. It's like they're alive, he said, his eyes scanning the room. But what are they trying to tell us? Dr. Simmons and Zax followed close behind, their scientific curiosity piqued by the ancient Packlet script. This could be the archaeological find of the century, Dr. Simmons said, her voice filled with excitement. For days, the team worked tirelessly to decipher the glyphs. Christian and Uma's unique connection to the planet's ecosystem proved invaluable, allowing them to perceive subtle energy patterns emanating from the markings. Their efforts paid off when they made a breakthrough in understanding the ancient Packlet language. It's incredible, Christian explained to the assembled research team. These glyphs describe a vast underground network of caverns. It's like the planet's circulatory system. Uma nodded, her skin shimmering with excitement. The network regulates environmental conditions and serves as a natural defense against cosmic threats. And we activated it during the geomagnetic storm. Dr. Simmons leaned forward, her eyes bright with possibility. An underground ecosystem of that scale could revolutionize our understanding of planetary protection and resource management. We need to explore it. The proposal for an expedition was quickly approved by both the Packlet High Council and Earth's diplomatic corps. A team was assembled, led by Christian and Uma, with Dr. Simmons, Zax, and a select group of human and Packlet scientists and explorers. Colonel Hawthorne, seeing the potential military applications, insisted on joining as a security consultant. Before the expedition could begin, Christian and Uma underwent a series of medical examinations. The tests revealed that their empathic abilities had continued to evolve, allowing them to communicate with the planet's ecosystem at an unprecedented level. As the team made final preparations, Uma suddenly collapsed, her body racked with fever. The light, she gasped, her eyes unfocused. It's so bright. Underground. Dr. Simmons frowned as she examined Uma. Her Packlet physiology seems to be undergoing further changes. It's as if the planet is reconfiguring her. Christian held Uma's hand, his face etched with concern. Maybe we should postpone the expedition, he suggested. Uma shook her head weakly. No, she insisted. The answers are down there. I can feel it. On the day of the expedition, the team gathered in the hidden chamber. Christian activated a previously unnoticed mechanism, revealing a steep, winding passage leading deep into the planet's crust. As they descended, the surrounding rock began to emit a soft bioluminescence, bathing them in an ethereal glow. The team soon found themselves in a vast cavern that defied their understanding of subterranean ecosystems. Strange, phosphorescent plants clung to the walls, while bizarre creatures scuttled across the cavern floor. This is unprecedented, Zax said, his skin rippling with excitement as he took readings. The biodiversity here is off the charts. As they ventured deeper, the expedition faced numerous challenges. Treacherous terrain forced them to navigate carefully, while unpredictable environmental shifts kept them on constant alert. Colonel Hawthorne's military expertise proved invaluable as he guided the team through particularly dangerous passages. Throughout the journey, Uma's condition continued to fluctuate. At times, she experienced moments of intense clarity, guiding the team with an almost supernatural sense of direction. However, these episodes were followed by periods of weakness and disorientation. Her vital signs are all over the place, Dr. Simmons reported, studying the portable monitoring system. It's as if her body is trying to adapt to this environment, but the process is unstable. Christian stayed close to Uma, his protective instincts heightened by their shared empathic link. He could feel her struggle, the push and pull between her Packlet physiology and the planet's influence. After days of exploration, the team reached a massive central cavern. At its center stood an ancient Packlet structure, its architecture unlike anything they had seen before. The building pulsated with energy that resonated strongly with Christian and Uma. As they approached the structure, Uma suddenly collapsed, her body convulsing violently. Christian rushed to her side, cradling her as Dr. Simmons and Zax worked frantically to stabilize her condition. "What's happening to her?" Christian asked, his voice tight with fear. Dr. Simmons shook her head, her face grim. "I'm not sure, but look at her skin." Uma's body had begun to emit a faint glow, similar to the bioluminescent fungi surrounding them. The team watched in a mixture of awe and horror as the transformation accelerated, Uma's form shifting before their eyes. As Uma's convulsions subsided, the team found themselves at a crossroads. The ancient structure beckoned, promising answers to the mysteries that had led them here. But Uma's condition remained precarious, her newly altered physiology an unknown factor. Christian looked from Uma to the structure, torn between his desire for answers and his concern for her safety. The decision they made now would not only affect their mission, but potentially change the course of human-Pakled relations forever. Colonel Hawthorne stepped forward, his face set with commitment. "We need to make a choice," he said, voicing the thought on everyone's mind. "Do we press on or do we turn back?" The team stood in silence, the weight of their decision hanging in the air as the ancient structure loomed before them, its secret still untold. The team stood in silence, the weight of their decision hanging in the air as the ancient structure loomed before them, its secrets still tantalizingly out of reach. Christian looked down at Uma, her body glowing faintly in his arms, and made a decision. "We press on," he said, his voice firm but tinged with concern. "The answers we need are in there. I can feel it." Dr. Simmons nodded, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "Agreed. Uma's condition appears to have stabilized for now. We may not get another chance like this." Colonel Hawthorne took point, his weapon at the ready as they approached the entrance. "Stay alert," he warned. "We don't know what we're walking into." As they crossed the threshold, the air around them seemed to thicken, charged with an invisible energy that made their skin tingle. The interior of the structure opened up into a vast chamber, its walls lined with towering crystalline formations that pulsed with an inner light. Christian cradled Uma close as they moved deeper into the chamber, her weight a comforting presence against the otherworldly surroundings. The team's footsteps echoed in the cavernous space, each sound seeming to reverberate with hidden meaning. At the center of the chamber, they discovered a raised platform surrounded by what appeared to be control consoles. The consoles were covered in the same glyphs they had encountered in the hidden chamber, but these seemed alive, glowing faintly as the team approached. Dr. Simmons and Zax immediately gravitated toward the consoles, their fingers hovering over the alien symbols as they attempted to decipher their purpose. Meanwhile, Colonel Hawthorne began setting up a defensive perimeter, his military training kicking in as he scanned for potential threats. Christian gently laid Uma on the central platform, his hands lingering on her shoulders. As soon as her body made contact with the surface, the platform sprang to life. A soft, pulsating light began to emanate from its core, enveloping Uma in a cocoon of energy. "Christian," Dr. Simmons called out, her voice urgent. "Step back!" Before Christian could react, Uma's body began to levitate slightly above the platform's surface. The glow emanating from her skin intensified, matching the rhythm of the light beneath her. The team watched in awe as Uma's transformation accelerated before their eyes. Her purple skin took on a shimmering quality, like the surface of a soap bubble catching the light. Intricate patterns began to form across her body, reminiscent of the bioluminescent fungi they had encountered in the caverns. It was as if the planet itself was rewriting her very being. Christian instinctively reached out to her, but an invisible force field sprang up around the platform, holding him at bay. "Uma!" he cried out, his hands pressed against the barrier. Dr. Simmons rushed to his side, her handheld scanner whirring as she took readings. "The energy levels are off the chart," she reported, her voice a mix of concern and fascination. "It's integrating with her pack-led physiology at a cellular level. I've never seen anything like it." As Uma's transformation progressed, the chamber around them came to life. Holographic displays sprang into existence, filling the air with swirling patterns of light. Schematics of the planet's underground network materialized, revealing a complex system of interconnected caverns and energy pathways. Sax's eyes widened as he made a breakthrough in deciphering the control consoles. "This is incredible," he exclaimed, his skin rippling with excitement. The ancient Pakleds developed a symbiotic relationship with the planet. These consoles, they're part of a planetary defense and regulation system. Colonel Hawthorne stepped closer, his interest piqued. Defense system against what? Before Zax could answer, Uma's eyes snapped open. They glowed with an inner light, reflecting the bioluminescence of the cavern. When she spoke, her voice resonated with layered harmonics that filled the chamber. I can see it all, she said, her words carrying an otherworldly weight. The entire planetary ecosystem. The knowledge of all the guardians who came before. Christian pushed against the force field, desperately trying to establish a mental connection with Uma through their empathic bond. Suddenly, his mind was flooded with a torrent of information and sensations. He gasped, overwhelmed by the vastness of what Uma was experiencing. The planet, Christian managed to say, translating Uma's knowledge for the team. It's alive in ways we never imagined, and it's in danger. Dr. Simmons leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. What kind of danger? Uma's gaze seemed to look beyond the confines of the chamber. The geomagnetic storm was only the beginning. A series of cosmic events are approaching that could tear the planet's atmosphere apart. This system, she gestured to the surrounding chamber, was designed to combat these threats. But it requires a network of guardians to operate at full capacity. The implications of Uma's words hung heavy in the air. Colonel Hawthorne was the first to break the silence. So, what are our options? Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. The holographic displays shifted, showing a massive cosmic disturbance heading towards the planet. Uma's voice cut through the chaos. We have less than 48 hours before it strikes. Without a full network of guardians, the planet's defenses may not hold. The team exchanged glances, the weight of their situation sinking in. They had come seeking answers, but now found themselves faced with a choice that could alter the fate of an entire world. Christian looked at Uma, her transformed body floating serenely above the platform. He could feel her presence in his mind, a swirling mix of newfound power and lingering humanity. As the alarms continued to blare and the team began to debate their next move, Christian knew that whatever path they chose, nothing would ever be the same again. Christian's gaze shifted between Uma's floating form and the holographic displays flickering with urgent warnings. The weight of their situation pressed down on him, but he pushed aside his fear, focusing on the immediate need for action. We need a plan, he said, his voice cutting through the tense silence. Uma, what can you tell us about the Guardian system? Uma's eyes, still glowing with an otherworldly light, locked onto Christian. When she spoke, her voice resonated with newfound power and knowledge. The system requires 5 guardians to operate at full capacity. Without them, the planet's defenses may not withstand the approaching cosmic event. Dr. Simmons stepped forward, her brow furrowed in concentration. Is there any way to activate the system without additional guardians? We don't have time to find and prepare 4 more people. Uma's form shimmered as she processed the question. There is a possibility. The ancient Pakalids designed an emergency protocol for situations like this. Zax's skin rippled with excitement as he worked furiously at one of the consoles. I think I've found something related to that, he announced. There's a subsystem that allows for temporary connections to the planetary network. Colonel Hawthorne joined them, his expression grim. What are the risks? Unknown, Uma replied. The process has never been attempted with non-Paklid physiology. Christian straightened, a look of grit crossing his face. I'll do it. I'll be the first to try. Dr. Simmons opened her mouth to protest, but Christian held up a hand. We don't have time to argue. If this doesn't work, we need to know quickly so we can find another solution. The team sprang into action, guided by Uma's instructions and Zax's rapidly improving understanding of the ancient technology. They gathered bioluminescent fungi from the cavern walls, arranging them in intricate patterns around a makeshift connection chamber. Christian lay down in the center of the fungi array, his heart pounding. He felt Uma's presence in his mind, a comforting warmth amidst the fear and uncertainty. Ready? Dr. Simmons asked, her hand hovering over the activation switch. Christian nodded, and the world exploded into light and sensation. Pain lanced through his body as his nervous system struggled to adapt to the influx of information. He gasped, his back arching off the ground. Through the haze of agony, he felt Uma's consciousness envelop his own, steadying him and helping him navigate the overwhelming sensory input. Gradually, the pain subsided, replaced by an expansive awareness. Christian could feel the planet's ecosystem pulsing around him, a vast network of energy and life. He opened his eyes, marveling at the new layer of perception overlaid on his vision. "It's incredible," he breathed. Colonel Hawthorne stepped forward, his face a mix of concern and perseverance. "Did it work? Can you access the defense grid?" Christian nodded, his mind already reaching out to interface with the ancient systems. "I can see it, but it's not enough. We need more connections. We need..." Without hesitation, Colonel Hawthorne volunteered, along with 2 other team members. Dr. Simmons and Zax worked quickly to prepare additional connection chambers, refining their design based on Christian's experience. As each new member connected to the system, the ancient structure hummed with renewed energy. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing the planetary defense grid slowly coming online. However, gaps in the coverage remained where the missing Guardian connections should have been. Uma's body began to pulse with an intense light as she drew more deeply on her connection to the planet. The other connected team members felt a surge of energy course through their temporary neural links. "Uma, what are you doing?" Christian called out, sensing her struggle through their bond. "Activating dormant nodes," she replied, her voice strained. "It may be enough to compensate for the missing Guardians." The chamber's crystalline formations began to resonate, creating a cascading effect throughout the underground network. The team watched in awe as the defense grid's coverage expanded rapidly on the holographic displays. But the power surge came at a cost. Uma's physical form began to destabilize, flickering between solid matter and pure energy. "Uma!" Christian cried out, pushing himself up despite the disorientation from the neural link. "You have to stop. You're losing yourself." Uma's voice echoed in his mind, filled with a mixture of grit and fear. "I can't stop now. The planet needs this. Our people need this." The cosmic disturbance entered the outer edges of the Pakled solar system, its approach rendered in vivid detail on the holographic displays. Alarms blared throughout the chamber, their urgent wailing a stark reminder of the impending danger. Christian looked around at his fellow team members, their faces etched with a combination of awe and terror as they witnessed Uma's transformation and the approaching threat. He could feel the strain on their improvised defense system, the tenuous balance between salvation and destruction. As Uma pushed the planetary defenses to their limits, Christian felt their empathic bond stretch to its breaking point. He realized that if she continued on this path, she might lose her individual consciousness entirely, becoming one with the planet's ecosystem. The team stood at a crossroads, the fate of 2 worlds hanging in the balance. They had to choose between maintaining the current level of defense, which might not be enough to fully protect the planet, but would preserve Uma's individuality, or pushing the system to its absolute limits, potentially saving the planet but risking Uma's existence as they knew her. Christian's mind raced, searching for a solution that would save both Uma and the planet. As the cosmic disturbance loomed ever closer, he prepared to make the hardest decision of his life, knowing that whatever choice he made would irreversibly alter the course of human-Pakled relations and the future of an entire world. World and the future of an entire civilization. Christian took a deep breath, his decision crystallizing in his mind. He reached out through the neural link, connecting with his team members and Uma. "We have to push it to the limit," he said, his voice resonating through their shared consciousness. "It's the only way to save both worlds." Colonel Hawthorne's face tightened, but he nodded in agreement. "Do it!" Uma's ethereal form pulsed with acknowledgement, and she began to channel an unprecedented surge of energy through her transformed body. The chamber erupted in a blinding light, forcing the team to shield their eyes. Christian felt the neural load increase exponentially, threatening to overwhelm his senses. He gritted his teeth, focusing on maintaining the connection as Uma's physical form started to dissolve into pure energy. Dr. Simmons monitored the team's vital signs, her eyes wide with concern. Their neural activity is off the charts, she reported to Zax, who worked furiously at the control console. The chamber rumbled as the planet's defense systems reached full capacity. Holographic displays flickered rapidly, showing the formation of a massive energy shield enveloping the entire world. Suddenly, the approaching cosmic disturbance came into view, a swirling mass of destructive forces that dwarfed anything they had ever seen. It collided with the shield, sending shockwaves through the planet's crust. The underground structure shook violently, loose debris raining down around them. Christian and the connected team members strained to maintain their link to the system, their bodies trembling with the effort. "Hold on," Christian shouted, both vocally and through the neural network. He could feel Uma's consciousness stretch to its limits, encompassing the entire planet. The battle between the cosmic forces and the planetary shield raged on, minutes feeling like hours as the team pushed themselves to the brink. Christian's vision blurred, his heart pounding from the sensory overload, but he refused to let go. Gradually, the intensity of the assault began to wane. The cosmic disturbance, its power spent against the unyielding shield, started to dissipate into the void of space. As the immediate threat passed, Christian felt a shift in Uma's energy. Her consciousness, previously spread thin across the planet, began to coalesce. He watched in awe as her form materialized once more in the center of the chamber. But Uma was changed. Her body now resembled the crystalline formations that surrounded them, pulsing with an inner light that matched the rhythm of the planet itself. One by one, the exhausted team members disconnected from the system, collapsing to the ground. Christian remained linked, unwilling to sever his connection to Uma. "Uma?" he called out, his voice hoarse. "Are you still you?" Her crystalline form shimmered, and he felt a familiar warmth in his mind. "I am more," she replied, her voice resonating through the chamber. "The planet, the people, the ecosystem, they are all part of me now." Dr. Simmons approached cautiously, her handheld scanner whirring. "The bioluminescent fungi," she gasped. "It's spreading across the entire planet's surface. The whole ecosystem is transforming." Zax's skin rippled with excitement as he analyzed the incoming data. "It's not just spreading, it's forming a network. The planet's natural regulatory systems are being enhanced on a global scale." Colonel Hawthorne stepped forward, his military training kicking in as he assessed the strategic implications. "We need to report this to Earth immediately. This changes everything." Christian reluctantly disconnected from the system, stumbling slightly as he readjusted to normal sensory input. He moved closer to Uma's crystalline form, reaching out to touch her. "Can you leave the chamber?" he asked, a note of concern in his voice. Uma's form flickered slightly. "I cannot. My presence here is necessary to maintain the stability of the defense system." The realization hit Christian hard. After everything they had been through, he couldn't bear the thought of leaving her behind. "Then I'm staying too," he declared. "I'll be the liaison between you and the outside world." Colonel Hawthorne opened his mouth to protest, but thought better of it. He nodded solemnly, recognizing the importance of maintaining a direct link to the planetary consciousness. As the team prepared to return to the surface, Dr. Simmons approached Christian. "We'll need to set up a base camp near the entrance," she said. "There's so much we need to learn about what's happened here." Christian nodded, his mind already racing with the challenges ahead. "I'll do whatever I can to help. Uma and we're connected to the planet's information network now. We can provide insights that might otherwise take years to discover." The group made their way through the winding tunnels, emerging into a world transformed. The bioluminescent fungi carpeted the landscape, pulsing with a soft, otherworldly glow. In the distance, they could see Pakled cities adapting to the changes, buildings and infrastructure seamlessly integrating with the new organic network. As they stood at the threshold between the underground chamber and this new world, Christian felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He knew that the decisions made in the coming days and weeks would shape the future of both the Pakled civilization and humanity's place in the galaxy. With a final glance back at the entrance to Uma's chamber, Christian stepped forward into the transformed landscape. The journey ahead was uncertain, but he was ready to face whatever challenges lay in store as they navigated this new chapter in the history of two worlds. As Christian stepped into the transformed landscape, he marveled at the otherworldly beauty of the bioluminescent fungi carpeting the ground. The soft, pulsing glow seemed to respond to his presence, creating ripples of light with each step he took. He could feel Uma's consciousness flowing through the network, a constant presence at the edge of his mind. Weeks passed, and the research expedition settled into a rhythm of discovery and adaptation. Christian spent his days shuttling between the surface and Uma's underground chamber, relaying information and coordinating efforts between the two worlds. But as time went on, he began to notice subtle changes in his own body. One morning, as he prepared to leave the chamber, Christian caught a glimpse of his reflection in a polished crystal surface. His skin had taken on a faint luminescence, reminiscent of the fungi spreading across the planet. Startled, he raised his hand to his face, watching as the glow intensified at his touch. "Uma," he called out, his voice echoing in the chamber. "What's happening to me?" Uma's crystalline form shimmered, and her voice resonated in his mind. "Your connection to the planetary system is growing stronger, Christian. You are becoming a part of it, just as I have." Before Christian could process this information, an urgent message came through from the surface. Dr. Simmons requested his presence immediately at the newly established research outpost. As Christian emerged from the underground complex, he was struck by the dramatic changes that had overtaken the landscape. The bioluminescent fungi had spread even further, creating a tapestry of light that stretched to the horizon. But amidst the beauty, he could see signs of distress in the nearby Pakled settlement. Dr. Simmons greeted him at the outpost, her face etched with concern. "Christian, we have a problem. The fungi are interfering with Pakled agriculture. Crops are failing across several regions." She led him to a holographic display showing the affected areas. Red zones indicated crop failures, spreading like a virus across the map. "The Pakled High Council is in an uproar," Colonel Hawthorne added, stepping into the room. "They're demanding solutions and fast." Dr. Simmons activated another display, revealing complex molecular structures. "I have a proposal," she said, her eyes gleaming with excitement despite the gravity of the situation. "We create hybrid crops that can coexist with the bioluminescent fungi. But to do this, we need samples of various Pakled plant species and access to the underground network." Christian nodded, already formulating a plan. "I can help with the underground access. Uma's been developing new abilities. She can project holographic images of herself throughout the network now. It'll make navigation much easier." Colonel Hawthorne's eyes narrowed at the mention of Uma's evolving capabilities. "These changes in both of you are concerning, Christian. We need to monitor your condition closely." Before Christian could respond, a group of Pakled botanists entered the outpost, led by a tall, willowy alien with iridescent skin. The lead botanist introduced himself as Zorn and presented a case filled with plant samples. "We are ready to begin the hybridization process," Zorn announced, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the bioluminescent glow from outside. As the team prepared to descend into the underground network, Christian felt a tingling sensation in his fingertips. He pressed his hand against the fungal growth on a nearby wall, and to his amazement, he could sense the flow of nutrients and information through the network. "I can communicate with the fungi," he gasped, turning to Dr. Simmons. "This could be invaluable for your research." Dr. Simmons's eyes widened, and she immediately began scanning Christian with her handheld device. "Fascinating. Your cellular structure is showing signs of hybridization with the fungal network. This is unprecedented." As they made their way through the winding tunnels, Uma's holographic form appeared, guiding them to a vast chamber filled with crystalline formations. The air hummed with energy, and Christian could feel the ancient knowledge pulsing around them. "This is where we'll conduct our experiments," Uma announced, her voice echoing through the cavern. "The crystals here contain information about Pakled plant life from millennia ago. It may hold the key to successful hybridization." For days, the team worked tirelessly, combining Pakled plant DNA with samples from the bioluminescent fungi. Christian acted as a conduit, using his newfound abilities to facilitate communication between Uma, the fungal network, and the scientists. As the experiments progressed, they began to see remarkable results. The hybrid plants grew at an astonishing rate, requiring minimal resources and displaying incredible resilience. But it was the plant's sensory capabilities that truly astonished the team. "Look at this," Dr. Simmons called out, gently stroking the leaf of a hybrid plant. The entire plant quivered and leaned into her touch, its bioluminescent veins pulsing with increased intensity. Zorn's multifaceted eyes reflected the plant's glow as he examined it closely. "This could revolutionize our agricultural practices," he said, his voice filled with awe. As news of their success spread, the underground chamber became a hub of activity. Diplomatic envoys from Earth and other alien species arrived, eager to witness the groundbreaking research firsthand. Amidst the excitement, Christian felt a sudden surge of energy coursing through the fungal network. He turned to Uma's holographic form, seeing his own concern reflected in her ethereal features. "Something's coming," Uma said, her voice tense. "The planetary defense system is detecting an anomaly at the edge of the solar system." Christian's mind raced as he processed this new information. He knew that the developments on the Pac-led homeworld, the hybrid crops, the evolving planetary consciousness, and now this unknown threat, were all converging toward a critical moment. As the chamber buzzed with activity and the hybrid plants pulsed with their newfound awareness, Christian steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The true test of their discoveries and the strength of the human-Pac-led alliance was yet to come. As the chamber buzzed with activity and the hybrid plants pulsed with their newfound awareness, Christian felt a sudden surge of energy coursing through his body. The tingling sensation he had experienced earlier intensified, spreading from his fingertips to his entire being. He looked down at his hands, startled to see a soft, pulsating glow emanating from his skin. "Uma," he called out, his voice trembling slightly. "What's happening to me?" Uma's holographic form shimmered into existence beside him, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "Your connection to the planetary system is growing stronger, Christian. Your physiology is adapting to channel the energy more effectively." Dr. Simmons rushed over, her handheld scanner whirring as she passed it over Christian's glowing form. "Fascinating," she muttered, her eyes widening as she analyzed the data. "Your cellular structure is undergoing rapid changes. It's like nothing I've ever seen before." As they spoke, Christian felt a strange sensation in his mind, as if he could sense the very air around him. With a thought, he found he could manipulate small objects nearby. A pen on Dr. Simmons' desk began to levitate, wobbling slightly as Christian struggled to control his newfound ability. "Incredible," Dr. Simmons breathed, watching the pen float. "You've developed some form of bioelectric field manipulation. We need to study this further, but more importantly, we need to find a way to regulate these changes." Over the next few days, Dr. Simmons worked tirelessly to develop a specialized containment suit for Christian. The suit, a seamless blend of human and Pac-led bioengineering, fit Christian like a second skin. As he donned it for the first time, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. "How does it feel?" Dr. Simmons asked, adjusting some final settings on a wrist-mounted control panel. Christian flexed his fingers, watching as the suit's surface rippled with a faint, controlled luminescence. "It's comfortable. I can still feel my connection to Uma and the planetary system, but it's not overwhelming anymore." As Christian adapted to his new suit, Uma's own evolution continued. Her crystalline form began to pulse with an even more intense energy, and soon she developed the ability to create temporary, physical projections throughout the underground network. One day, as Christian and Uma worked together in a newly discovered section of the ancient knowledge repository, Uma's projection reached out and touched a crystal formation. To their amazement, the crystal responded, revealing a holographic display of complex schematics. "Christian," Uma said, her voice filled with excitement, "I think we found something important. These look like plans for an ancient Pac-led defense system." As they studied the schematics, the pieces began to fall into place. The system, called the Stellar Aegis, was designed to redirect cosmic energy, creating an impenetrable shield around the entire solar system. This could be the key to protecting both Earth and the Pac-led homeworld from the approaching threat, Christian realized, his mind racing with the possibilities. However, their excitement was tempered by a sobering discovery. Activating the stellar aegis required a specific type of energy crystal, one that was long thought extinct on the Packlet homeworld. As they relayed this information to the surface, the Packlet High Council convened an emergency session. After hours of heated debate, they authorized an expedition to a nearby asteroid belt, where trace amounts of the necessary minerals had been detected. Colonel Hawthorne, seeing an opportunity to showcase human expertise, quickly volunteered to lead the mission. "I'll assemble a team of our best miners and engineers," he announced, his voice filled with purpose. "We'll get those crystals, no matter what it takes." As preparations for the asteroid expedition got underway, Dr. Simmons made an unexpected breakthrough with her hybrid crop project. She burst into the underground chamber one morning, her eyes wild with excitement. "Christian, Uma, you need to see this," she said, pulling up a holographic display of the hybrid plant's root systems. "They're forming a rudimentary neural network. It's as if they're developing a collective intelligence." The implications of this discovery were staggering. As they grappled with the ethical considerations of potentially creating a sentient plant species, the Packlet High Council made the controversial decision to approve limited deployment of the hybrid crops in designated agricultural zones. Meanwhile, Christian and Uma continued their work in the knowledge repository. As they deciphered more of the ancient Packlet language, they uncovered detailed schematics for a device capable of enhancing the natural telepathic abilities of certain Packlet individuals. Dr. Simmons, intrigued by the potential applications, began working on a prototype of the telepathic enhancer. "If we can get this working," she explained to Christian, "it could strengthen your bond with Uma and potentially allow you to access more of the planetary consciousness without risking further physical transformation." As these events unfolded, Uma suddenly stiffened, her projection flickering momentarily. "Christian," she said, her voice urgent, "the planetary defense system is detecting strange energy signatures from the approaching entity. I think it's trying to communicate." Christian felt a chill run down his spine. He knew that deciphering this message could be crucial to understanding the nature and intentions of the approaching force. As he and Uma began the painstaking process of analyzing the energy patterns, Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled over the communication system. "Base, this is Hawthorne," he said, his tone tense. "We've reached the target asteroid, but there's a problem. There's some kind of massive energy field surrounding it. Our sensors and propulsion systems are going haywire. We need a new plan, and fast." Christian exchanged a worried glance with Uma. The race against time had begun, and the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Christian and Uma exchanged worried glances as Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled through the communication system, describing the energy field surrounding the target asteroid. The situation was dire, but Hawthorne's tenacity shone through his words. "We're not giving up," Hawthorne's voice came through again. "I have an idea that might just work." Over the next few hours, Christian and the team on the Pack-led homeworld listened intently as Hawthorne implemented his daring plan. Using materials salvaged from their larger ships, the expedition constructed a makeshift Faraday cage around a small shuttle. "It's not pretty," Hawthorne reported, "but it should do the job. We're preparing to enter the field now." Christian held his breath as the communication cut out. Seconds stretched into minutes as they waited for news. Finally, Hawthorne's voice returned, filled with a mix of relief and excitement. "We're through. The Faraday cage worked. We've landed on the asteroid's surface." As Hawthorne's team set up their base camp and began the excavation process, Christian refocused on the task at hand. Dr. Simmons had just completed her prototype of the telepathic enhancer device, and the results from the Packlet volunteers were promising. "Christian," Dr. Simmons called, her eyes bright with excitement, "the enhancer is ready for human testing. Are you sure you want to volunteer?" Christian nodded, his heart racing with anticipation. "I'm sure. If this can help us better understand the planetary consciousness and the approaching entity, it's worth the risk." Under Dr. Simmons' watchful eye, Christian entered the testing chamber. The device, a sleek headband studded with biosensors, fit snugly around his temples. As Dr. Simmons activated the enhancer, Christian felt a sudden rush of energy coursing through his body. His mind expanded, merging more fully with Uma's consciousness. The vast knowledge stored within the planetary system flooded his awareness, overwhelming his senses. Christian gasped, his body trembling as he struggled to process the influx of information. "Christian!" Dr. Simmons' voice seemed distant. "Your vital signs are spiking. We need to shut it down." Before she could reach the controls, Uma's holographic form appeared in the chamber. Her eyes locked with Christian's, and suddenly he felt a stabilizing presence in his mind. Uma reached out, her ethereal hand touching his forehead. In that moment, their consciousnesses intertwined more deeply than ever before. Christian felt his racing heart slow, his erratic breathing steadying as Uma shared the neural load of processing the vast data stream. "Incredible," Dr. Simmons murmured, watching the readings on her monitors stabilize. "They've formed some kind of symbiotic link." As Christian and Uma explored their new level of connection, they delved deeper into the ancient knowledge repository. Suddenly, a series of images flashed through their shared consciousness, schematics of the stellar aegis, overlaid with the neural patterns of sentient beings. "The stellar aegis," Christian gasped, his eyes wide. "It's not just a machine. It needs living, sentient beings to act as control nodes." As this revelation sank in, an urgent message came through from Colonel Hawthorne's team on the asteroid. "Base, we've made an incredible discovery," Hawthorne reported, his voice tight with excitement. "We found an ancient alien probe buried alongside the energy crystals. This asteroid, it might have been placed here deliberately." The implications of this discovery sent shockwaves through the team. As they grappled with this new information, Uma suddenly stiffened, her holographic form flickering. "The entity," she said, her voice urgent, "it's accelerating its approach, and it's sending out energy pulses. They're similar to the communication protocols used by the alien probe." Christian felt a surge of adrenaline course through him. The pieces were falling into place, but time was running out. He turned to Dr. Simmons, his eyes blazing with commitment. "We need to refine the enhancer," he said. "If we're going to activate the stellar aegis, we'll need a network of volunteers ready to serve as control nodes." As Dr. Simmons nodded and rushed off to modify the enhancer, Christian and Uma focused their shared consciousness on the ancient defense system. The protocols left behind by the Packlet Guardians were complex, an intricate web of commands and failsafes. "We can do this," Uma's voice echoed in Christian's mind. "Together." As they worked to decipher the activation sequence, reports flooded in from the surface. The hybrid crops were spreading rapidly, their collective intelligence interfacing with the fungal network. Vast swaths of arid land were transforming into lush, productive landscapes. On the asteroid, Hawthorne's team raced against time. The internal structure was becoming unstable, threatening to destroy both the energy crystals and the ancient probe. "We're running out of time," Hawthorne's voice crackled through the comm system. "The asteroid's breaking apart. We need to extract these crystals now." Christian felt the weight of two civilizations pressing down on him. With Uma's presence steadying him, he pushed deeper into the planetary consciousness, searching for the key to unlocking the stellar aegis. As alarms blared and tension mounted, Christian knew they were approaching a critical juncture. The fate of both human and Packlet civilization hung in the balance, with the success or failure of their interconnected projects determining their ability to face the impending encounter with the mysterious force rapidly approaching their solar system. System. Christian's eyes snapped open, his mind racing with the implications of their discoveries. He turned to Uma, her holographic form shimmering with intensity. "We need to act fast," he said, his voice steady despite the urgency. "The stellar aegis, the approaching entity, the hybrid crops, everything's interconnected." Uma nodded, her crystalline structure pulsing with energy. "I've detected a surge in activity from the entity. It's accelerating towards us." Before Christian could respond, alarms blared throughout the underground complex. Dr. Simmons burst into the room, her face pale with concern. "Christian, Uma, we have a situation," she said, pulling up a holographic display. "Colonel Hawthorne's team on the asteroid. They're in trouble." The display showed a 3D model of the asteroid, its core pulsing in angry red. Hawthorne's voice crackled through the speakers, tense but controlled. Base, our drilling equipment has malfunctioned. The asteroid's becoming unstable. We need a new extraction plan now. Christian watched as Hawthorne's team scrambled to salvage their mission. The colonel's quick thinking impressed him as he outlined a daring plan to manually extract the energy crystals using controlled explosives and precision cutting tools. It's risky, Hawthorne admitted, but it's our only shot. As the asteroid team began their perilous operation, Christian and Uma refocused on activating the stellar aegis. They delved deeper into the ancient Pakled protocols, their merged consciousnesses working in perfect synchronicity. We've found something, Uma announced, her voice echoing in Christian's mind. The aegis requires a network of energy nodes across the planet's surface. Dr. Simmons, who had been monitoring their progress, jumped into action. I'll coordinate with the engineering teams. We'll need to construct transmission towers at specific locations. As she left to organize the construction efforts, Christian felt a sudden surge of energy through his neural link with Uma. The hybrid crops were evolving at an unprecedented rate, their collective intelligence growing exponentially. Christian, Uma said, her voice filled with wonder, the plants are forming symbiotic relationships with native fauna. Look, a holographic image appeared, showing a massive insectoid creature pollinating vast fields of crops with incredible efficiency. Christian marveled at the sight, recognizing both the potential and the risks of such rapid ecological change. Their contemplation was interrupted by another incoming transmission. This time it was from the joint human-Pakled space fleet assembling in orbit. The fleet commander's face appeared on the screen, his expression a mix of awe and concern. Base, you need to see this, he said, transmitting visual data. Our ships, they're changing. The images showed Pakled vessels partially transformed, their hulls now emitting the same bioluminescent glow as the planet's surface. Human ships remained unchanged, but their proximity to the Pakled craft seemed to be enhancing their performance in unexpected ways. As Christian and Uma grappled with these developments, an urgent message came through from the asteroid. Hawthorne's voice was strained, the sound of alarms blaring in the background. Base, we've got the crystals, but the asteroid's breaking apart. We're evacuating now, but we have team members trapped in a collapsing tunnel. Christian held his breath as he listened to Hawthorne coordinate a daring rescue mission. The colonel's voice remained steady as he led the operation himself, guiding his team through the treacherous, crumbling passages of the asteroid. We're clear, Hawthorne finally reported, his relief palpable even through the static-filled transmission. All team members accounted for. We've secured the energy crystals and the alien probe, heading back to base now. As the asteroid team began their journey home, Dr. Simmons returned with news of her own. The enhanced telepathic network is ready, she announced. We have a group of Pakled volunteers prepared to link with the planetary defense system. Christian nodded, steeling himself for what was to come. Let's do this. As the volunteer Pakleds were connected to the network, Christian and Uma felt a massive surge of energy. Their shared consciousness expanded exponentially, threatening to overwhelm them. Christian gritted his teeth, fighting to maintain control as the influx of minds joined their neural link. Suddenly, the underground complex came alive. Hidden chambers unsealed themselves, revealing technologies that had lain dormant for millennia. As the team scrambled to understand these newly awakened systems, Uma's consciousness expanded further, reaching out into the solar system. The entity, she gasped, her holographic form flickering with the strain. I can sense it clearly now. It's familiar. Christian felt her realization as if it were his own. The approaching force bore an unmistakable similarity to the ancient Pakled guardians who had created the stellar aegis. As this revelation sent shockwaves through the command structure, Hawthorne's ship appeared on long-range scanners, racing back to the Pakled homeworld with its precious cargo. But between them and safety lay a swirling vortex of energy in the upper atmosphere, a byproduct of the newly activated defense systems. Christian watched the ship's approach on the holographic display, his heart pounding. The success of their mission, the fate of two civilizations, all hinged on Hawthorne's ability to navigate this treacherous final obstacle. Come on, Colonel, Christian murmured, his eyes fixed on the display. Bring it home. Home, Christian finished, his eyes never leaving the display. The tension in the control room was palpable as they watched Hawthorne's ship hurtle toward the planet. Suddenly, the vortex of energy in the upper atmosphere intensified, creating a swirling maelstrom of deadly power. "Colonel, be advised," Dr. Simmons called out, her voice tight with concern. "The atmospheric disturbances have increased exponentially. Approach with extreme caution." "Copy that, base." Hawthorne's steady voice crackled through the speakers. Switching to manual control. Christian and Uma watched in awe as Hawthorne's piloting skills were put to the ultimate test. The ship weaved through the energy patterns with precision, narrowly avoiding lethal surges that threatened to tear it apart. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the command center. "Energy spike detected," Uma announced, her holographic form flickering with urgency. On the display, they saw a tendril of energy lash out, striking one of the ship's engines. The craft lurched dangerously, spinning out of control for a heart-stopping moment. "Engine 2 is down," Hawthorne reported, his voice strained but focused. "Rerouting power from non-essential systems?" Christian marveled at the colonel's composure as he watched him stabilize the ship, guiding it through the treacherous descent with one engine. Dr. Simmons sprang into action. "We need to give them a clear path," she said, turning to the group of PAC-led volunteers connected to the telepathic network. "Focus your abilities on creating a stable air corridor." The PAC-leds closed their eyes in concentration, their linked minds reaching out to influence the turbulent atmosphere. Slowly, a visible path of calm air began to form amidst the chaos. "Christian," Uma said, her voice resonating in his mind, "we can help too." Together, they delved deeper into the planetary defense system, activating a series of underground energy dampeners. The devices hummed to life, creating a safe landing zone for Hawthorne's approaching craft. "Colonel, we prepared a landing site for you," Christian communicated. "I'm sending you the coordinates now." As the ship entered the lower atmosphere, Christian noticed with alarm that its hull was glowing an ominous orange. "The heat shields are failing," he muttered. "PAC-lead engineering team," he called out. "Prepare emergency landing equipment. We need foam dispersal units ready to prevent fires on impact." The PAC-lead engineers moved with surprising speed, mobilizing their resources with efficiency born of desperation. Every eye in the control room was fixed on the display as Hawthorne's ship made its final approach. The craft was listing badly, trailing smoke and debris as it hurtled towards the prepared landing zone. "Brace for impact," Hawthorne's voice came through, calm despite the dire circumstances. The ship hit the ground hard, skidding across the foam-covered surface. Metal screamed against the earth as the craft carved a deep furrow into the landing zone. For a moment it seemed the ship might flip, but it finally came to rest, battered but intact. "Emergency teams, move in," Dr. Simmons ordered. A flurry of activity erupted as both human and PAC-led responders rushed to the scene. They quickly extracted Hawthorne and his crew, along with their precious cargo. Christian breathed a sigh of relief as he saw Hawthorne emerge from the wreckage, looking shaken but alive. The colonel was quickly ushered away for medical treatment. Dr. Simmons took charge of the energy crystals, overseeing their transport to a specially prepared facility. "Get these integrated into the Stellar Aegis system immediately," she instructed her team. The ancient alien probe was carefully moved to a secure research lab. Christian knew its secrets could be crucial in understanding the approaching entity. As the immediate crisis passed, Christian became aware of other changes happening around them. The hybrid ecosystem they had created was evolving at an astonishing rate. Reports flooded in from across the planet of plants and creatures forming complex symbiotic relationships with native life forms. "Uma," Christian said, his mind racing with the implications. "We need to monitor these ecological changes closely. They could have unforeseen consequences." Before Uma could respond, an alert sounded from the orbital monitoring system. The approaching entity had suddenly accelerated, now unmistakably on a direct course for the PAC-led homeworld. "Energy surge detected," Uma announced, her voice tinged with a mix of fear and curiosity. "The entity is emitting a series of complex patterns." Christian focused his attention on the incoming data, his mind working in tandem with Uma's to decipher the strange signals. As they unraveled the intricate patterns, a shocking realization dawned on them. It's not just one entity, Christian said, his voice filled with wonder. It's a collective of advanced beings. And these signals, they're using an ancient form of Pakled communication. Dr. Simmons, who had returned to the control room, looked at him sharply. What are they saying? Christian's eyes widened as the translation became clear. They claim to be descendants of the original Pakled guardians. They've returned to evaluate our progress. A hush fell over the control room as the implications of this revelation sank in. The stellar Aegis hummed to life, its ancient systems fully powered by the newly integrated energy crystals. A shimmering shield began to form in the upper atmosphere, encapsulating the entire planet. As the advanced beings entered the inner solar system, Christian and Uma found themselves at the center of a vast network of energy and life. The hybrid ecosystem, the planetary defense system, and their own intertwined consciousnesses formed a complex living circuit of unprecedented power. Christian realized that they had become the key to bridging the gap between the ancient Guardians' technology and the evolved Pakled world. As the returning Guardians approached the edge of the stellar Aegis, he knew that the next few moments would determine the fate of both human and Pakled civilization. He turned to Uma, their shared consciousness brimming with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. "Are we ready for this?" he asked. Uma's holographic form shimmered with drive. "We have to be," she replied. "The future of two worlds depends on what happens next." As the advanced beings drew nearer, Christian and Uma prepared themselves for the monumental task of establishing first contact. The control room buzzed with nervous energy as everyone waited to see how this momentous encounter would unfold. Christian took a deep breath, centering himself as he prepared for the monumental task ahead. He reached out with his mind, feeling Uma's presence intertwined with his own. Together, they tapped into the vast network of energy flowing through the planetary defense system. As the advanced beings approached the edge of the stellar Aegis, Christian and Uma projected a unified message of peace and welcome. Their thoughts coalesced into a vivid display of images and emotions, showcasing the progress of the Pakled civilization and their alliance with humans. The response was immediate and awe-inspiring. A localized energy field materialized just outside the stellar Aegis, shimmering with otherworldly power. Before their eyes, it took shape, forming a massive, translucent structure that bore a striking resemblance to an ancient Pakled temple. A wave of excitement rippled through the control room as a message was received from the beings. They were inviting a delegation to board the energy construct for face-to-face communication. "We need a team," Christian announced, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "I'll go. Uma, can you maintain our link if I separate from you temporarily?" Uma's holographic form flickered with concern. "Yes, but be careful. Our connection may be strained at a distance." Colonel Hawthorne, who had just entered the control room after recovering from his injuries, stepped forward. "I'm coming too. We need a military perspective on this." Dr. Simmons nodded in agreement. "I'll join as well. My expertise in Pakled biology and the hybrid ecosystem could be crucial." A group of Pakled representatives, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and anticipation, volunteered to complete the delegation. As they prepared for departure, reports flooded in from across the planet. The hybrid ecosystem was undergoing another rapid transformation. At the launch site, intelligent plants wove themselves into a dense, protective cocoon. Swarms of pollinator creatures gathered overhead, forming a living corridor that pulsed with bioluminescent light. The delegation boarded a modified shuttle, its hull now partially composed of the same glowing material as the Pakled ships. As they lifted off, Christian felt a momentary surge of vertigo as his physical connection to Uma weakened. He focused on their empathic link, using it as an anchor as they ascended towards the energy construct. The shuttle passed through a series of shimmering barriers, each one scanning and analyzing its occupants. Christian's skin tingled as waves of energy washed over him. Suddenly, the world seemed to shift and blur around them. When his vision cleared, he found himself in a vast chamber that defied comprehension. The interior of the construct stretched out impossibly, far larger than its exterior had suggested. Swirling patterns of energy formed intricate, ever-changing structures that pulsed with vibrant colors. At the center of this cosmic display, the advanced beings revealed themselves. They appeared as beings of pure energy, their forms vaguely humanoid but constantly shifting and flowing. No words were spoken, but Christian felt their thoughts projecting directly into his mind. He turned to the rest of the delegation, translating the alien concepts into words they could understand. They're the descendants of the original Pakled protectors, he explained, his voice filled with wonder. They left the planet millennia ago to explore the cosmos. Dr. Simmons' eyes widened as she processed the information Christian was relaying. The hybrid ecosystem, she gasped. It's not just a side effect. They're saying it's a crucial step in the planet's predetermined evolutionary path. Colonel Hawthorne, ever vigilant, stepped forward. What are their intentions? He asked, his voice tight with concern. Christian closed his eyes, focusing on the stream of information flowing into his mind. They mean us no harm, he translated, but they warn that the Pakled civilization must prove itself worthy of the gifts they've been given. As the meeting progressed, Christian began to feel a growing discomfort. His separation from Uma and the planetary defense system was taking its toll on his altered physiology. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he struggled to maintain his focus. The Guardians, sensing his distress, projected a new series of thoughts. Christian's eyes widened as he understood their proposal. They're offering a solution, he said, his voice trembling slightly. They suggest fully merging my consciousness with Uma's and the planetary defense system. It would create a new form of hybrid being, a permanent bridge between the physical and energy realms. The implications of this offer hung heavy in the air. Christian knew that accepting would mean sacrificing his individual human identity, but it would also allow him to be with Uma forever and play a crucial role in the future of both civilizations. Before he could fully process this monumental decision, the Guardians projected a final warning. Christian's face paled as he translated for the group. Other cosmic forces have noticed our activities, he explained. The activation of the stellar aegis has drawn attention from potentially hostile entities. Both the Pakled world and Earth may be at risk. As the delegation prepared to return to the planet's surface, Christian felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The fate of two worlds now rested on their shoulders, and his impending decision would play a pivotal role in shaping the future. The shuttle journey back to the planet was silent, each member of the team lost in their own thoughts. As they re-entered the atmosphere, Christian gazed out at the transformed landscape below. The hybrid ecosystem had spread further, creating a tapestry of bioluminescent patterns across the planet's surface. Christian's mind raced with the implications of everything they had learned. As they approached the landing site, he knew that the real challenge was just beginning. They would need to prepare their civilizations for rapid advancement while also bolstering their defenses against unknown cosmic threats. As the shuttle touched down, Christian felt a surge of energy through his empathic link with Uma. Her presence in his mind was a comfort, but it also served as a reminder of the choice that lay before him. The future of human-Pakled cooperation and their place in the cosmic order hung in the balance, with Christian's decision serving as a crucial turning point. With a deep breath, Christian stepped out of the shuttle, ready to face the challenges that awaited them. The hybrid ecosystem pulsed around him, a living reminder of the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. As he walked towards the command center, Christian knew that the next steps they took would shape the destiny of two worlds and beyond. Christian walked towards the command center, his heart pounding from the weight of the decision before him. The hybrid ecosystem pulsed around him, its bioluminescent glow seemingly in sync with his racing heartbeat. As he entered the control room, Uma's holographic form shimmered into view. "Christian," she said, her voice tinged with concern, "I sense your turmoil. Have you made your decision?" He nodded, his expression a mixture of drive and apprehension. "I have. I'll do it. I'll merge my consciousness with yours and the planetary defense system." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Dr. Simmons stepped forward, her eyes wide. "Christian, are you sure? The implications of this are, well, they're beyond anything we've ever encountered. I'm sure, Christian replied, his voice steady. It's the best chance we have to protect both our worlds and face whatever's coming our way. Colonel Hawthorne, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. What do we need to do to make this happen? Over the next few hours, a flurry of activity consumed the underground complex. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly to construct a specialized chamber for the merging process. The room hummed with energy, its walls lined with a lattice of crystalline structures similar to Uma's core. As the final preparations were made, Christian stood at the entrance to the chamber. He turned to Dr. Simmons, who was calibrating a series of monitoring devices. Eliza, he said softly, if this doesn't work, tell my family I love them. Dr. Simmons nodded, her expression solemn. It will work, Christian, and when it does, you'll be able to tell them yourself. Christian took a deep breath and stepped into the chamber. The door sealed behind him with a soft hiss. He lay down on the central platform, electrodes attached to his temples and chest. Through the transparent ceiling, he could see Uma's holographic form hovering above, her expression a mix of anticipation and concern. Are you ready? Uma's voice echoed in his mind. As I'll ever be, Christian replied, closing his eyes. The chamber filled with a pulsating energy field, enveloping Christian's body. He gasped as he felt a tingling sensation spread from his fingertips to his core. The sensation intensified, and Christian's back arched as waves of energy coursed through him. Outside the chamber, Dr. Simmons and her team watched in awe as Christian's body began to change. His skin took on a crystalline sheen, refracting the light in prismatic patterns. The transformation progressed slowly but steadily, hour after hour. As Christian's physical form altered, the hybrid ecosystem on the planet's surface responded. Plants grew at an accelerated rate, forming intricate patterns visible from space. Pollinator creatures swarmed in complex formations, their bioluminescent bodies creating a spectacular light show in the sky. Inside the chamber, Christian's consciousness expanded. He felt Uma's presence intertwining with his own, their thoughts and memories merging into a singular entity. The vast network of the planetary defense system opened up to him, flooding his mind with an overwhelming amount of information. For a moment, Christian feared he would lose himself in the deluge, but then he felt Uma's steadying presence, guiding him through the torrent of data. Together, they navigated the complex web of energy and information, their combined consciousness expanding to encompass the entire planet. After what seemed like an eternity, the energy field in the chamber began to dissipate. The door slid open, and Dr. Simmons rushed in, her medical scanner at the ready. What she saw made her gasp in astonishment. Where Christian had once lain, a being of crystalline energy now stood. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but constantly shifting and flowing, reminiscent of Uma's holographic appearance. When it spoke, the voice was a harmonic blend of Christian's and Uma's. We are one, the being said, its voice resonating with power. We are Christian Uma, and we are the guardian of this world. Before anyone could respond, the being's form tensed, its eyes now glowing with an otherworldly light, focused on something beyond the chamber walls. A threat approaches, Christian Uma announced, its voice urgent. Unknown vessels have entered the outer solar system. Colonel Hawthorne snapped into action. What are we dealing with? The hybrid being's form shimmered as it accessed the full scope of the planetary defense system. A swarm of vessels unlike anything we've encountered. Their energy signatures are alien. As if in response to the threat, the stellar aegis sprang to life. The planetary defense grid activated, creating multiple layers of energy shields around the Packlet homeworld and nearby planets. Christian Uma extended its consciousness, manipulating the defenses with unprecedented precision. Colonel, the being said, turning to Hawthorne, prepare the fleet. We may need every ship we have. Hawthorne nodded grimly and left the room, barking orders into his communicator. Dr. Simmons approached the crystalline entity, her scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her awe. Christian, Uma, how do you feel? She asked hesitantly. The being's form rippled, a cascade of emotions playing across its surface. We are more than we were, yet still ourselves. But there's no time for further analysis. We must prepare for what's coming. As if to emphasize the point, alarms began blaring throughout the complex. The unknown vessels had increased their speed, their trajectory leaving no doubt about their destination. Christian Uma's form pulsed with energy. The cosmic threat the Guardians warned us about. It's here and it's coming for us. The hybrid being moved with fluid grace towards the command center, its crystalline body leaving trails of light in its wake. As it interfaced with the control systems, the full might of the stellar Aegis came online. Ancient weapon platforms, hidden throughout the solar system, awakened from their millennial slumber. On the planet's surface, the hybrid ecosystem responded to the impending threat. Intelligent plants wove themselves into dense, protective barriers around major population centers. Swarms of pollinator creatures took to the skies, forming aerial squadrons ready to defend against any invaders. As the first wave of alien vessels approached the outer defense grid, Christian Uma channeled more power into the stellar Aegis. The being's form glowed brighter, drawing energy from the hybrid ecosystem to reinforce the weakening points in the defense. The command center erupted into a flurry of activity as reports flooded in from across the planet and the orbiting fleet. Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comm system, reporting that the joint human-Packard fleet was in position and ready to engage. Dr. Simmons, her eyes glued to the data streaming across her screens, called out, "The alien force, it's not just a fleet. It's multiple species, all acting in unison? Some kind of hive mind?" Christian Uma's form shimmered as it processed this information. A collective consciousness, not unlike our own, but vastly different in its intentions. As the first explosions lit up the edge of the stellar Aegis, visible even from the planet's surface, the hybrid being's eyes narrowed with drive. The real battle, it said, its voice resonating with the combined will of Christian, Uma, and the entire planetary defense system, is about to begin. Begin. Alarms blared throughout the command center as the first wave of alien vessels breached the outer defense grid. Christian Uma's crystalline form pulsed with energy, its eyes fixed on the holographic display of the battlefield. "We need to buy more time," the hybrid being announced, its voice echoing with urgency. "Dr. Simmons, what's the status of your research?" Dr. Simmons, her face illuminated by the glow of multiple screens, looked up with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "We've made a breakthrough. I believe we can disrupt the hive mind controlling these forces, but we'll need to construct a massive energy pulse emitter." Christian Uma's form shimmered as it processed this information. "What do you need?" "Components from the ancient alien probe, combined with our new hybrid technology," Dr. Simmons replied, her fingers flying across a keyboard. "We'll need to build it at the highest elevation possible to maximize its range." Colonel Hawthorne, who had been coordinating the fleet's defensive maneuvers, turned to face them. "The peak of Mount Zarkis. It's the tallest mountain on the planet, and we have a research station there we can use as a base of operations." Christian Uma nodded, its form rippling with decision. "Make it happen. I'll divert resources and energy to support the construction." As Dr. Simmons and her team rushed to gather the necessary equipment, Christian Uma interfaced with the planetary defense system. The being's consciousness expanded, reaching out to the hybrid ecosystem that now covered much of the planet's surface. Across the pack-led homeworld, intelligent plants began to weave themselves into dense, protective barriers around major population centers. Swarms of pollinator creatures took to the skies, forming intricate patterns as they prepared to defend their world. In orbit, the joint human-Packard fleet engaged the alien vessels in a desperate battle. The void of space lit up with energy weapons and explosions, the darkness punctuated by brief, violent flashes of light. On the slopes of Mount Zarkis, a flurry of activity erupted as transport ships delivered components for the pulse emitter. Dr. Simmons directed her team with practiced efficiency, her voice carrying over the howling wind that whipped across the peak. "Secure that power coupling. We need to integrate it with the alien probe's resonance chamber," she shouted, pointing to a group of engineers struggling with a massive piece of equipment. As the emitter took shape, its spire reaching into the upper atmosphere, Christian Uma made a difficult decision. The hybrid being diverted significant power from the stellar Aegis to charge the new device, temporarily weakening the planet's defenses. The effect was immediate. More enemy ships penetrated the defensive grid, their weapons raining destruction on the cities below. Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comm system, tension evident in his tone. "We're taking heavy losses. How much longer until that emitter is operational?" Dr. Simmons' response was drowned out by a deafening explosion. A group of alien dropships had broken through the perimeter, deploying ground troops around the base of Mount Zarkis. Christian Uma's consciousness stretched to its limit, coordinating the planet's defenses while simultaneously powering the pulse emitter. The hybrid being felt the strain, its merged consciousness fluctuating under the pressure. On the mountain, pollinator creatures swarmed in defensive formations, their bioluminescent bodies creating a dazzling light show as they engaged the alien ground forces. The intelligent plants of the hybrid ecosystem extended their root networks, creating a series of underground tunnels that allowed Pakled and human defenders to move swiftly between strategic positions. As the battle raged, Dr. Simmons made a startling discovery. Her eyes widened as she read the data scrolling across her tablet. The emitter. It needs a living conductor to properly focus and direct the energy pulse, she announced, her voice filled with a mix of awe and concern. Christian Uma's form tensed, understanding the implication immediately. "What are the requirements for this conductor?" Dr. Simmons swallowed hard before responding. "Based on our calculations, only two entities could possibly withstand the power, you or the evolved pollinators." The hybrid being's form rippled with a cascade of emotions, visible in patterns across its crystalline surface. After a moment of internal struggle, Christian Uma spoke. "I will do it. The pollinators are needed for the planet's defense." Before anyone could object, the hybrid being moved towards the pulse emitter. Its crystalline body began to merge with the device's structure, energy crackling between them as the connection solidified. As the final interfaces were established, Christian Uma felt a surge of power that threatened to overwhelm their consciousness. The being struggled to maintain control, drawing upon both Christian's human resilience and Uma's alien adaptability. Dr. Simmons watched in awe as the emitter began to glow, its energy building to a crescendo. "Prepare for pulse emission," she shouted, her voice barely audible over the rising hum of power. With a blinding flash that lit up the sky, the energy pulse was released. It radiated outward, passing through the stellar Aegis and expanding into space. The effect on the invading forces was immediate and dramatic. Enemy ships, once moving with coordinated precision, suddenly fell into disarray. They collided with one another, their formations breaking apart in chaos. On the ground, alien troops stumbled and fell, clearly disoriented. Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comm system, a note of triumph in his tone. "Whatever you did, it's working. The enemy fleet is in chaos. All units, press the attack." As the tide of battle turned, Christian Uma detected a massive energy buildup at the center of the enemy fleet. The hybrid being's consciousness expanded, reaching out to analyze the threat. "They're going to detonate their flagship," Christian Uma announced, its voice resonating with urgency. "The explosion will destroy the planet. We must stop them." Without hesitation, the hybrid being channeled the full power of the stellar Aegis and the planetary defense system into a concentrated beam. The strain on their merged consciousness was immense, threatening to tear apart the delicate balance between Christian's humanity and Uma's alien nature. The energy beam lanced out into space, visibly distorting the fabric of reality around it. It struck the enemy flagship just as the vessel began to detonate. The resulting explosion was contained within a bubble of warped space-time, sparing the Pakled homeworld from destruction, but sending shockwaves through the entire solar system. As the blinding light faded and the shockwaves dissipated, an eerie silence fell over the battlefield. The remaining enemy forces, their hive mind control permanently severed, began to retreat in disarray. In the aftermath of the cataclysmic event, Christian Uma's form flickered and destabilized. The immense energy channeled through their merged consciousness had caused a partial separation of their essences. Christian's human aspects and Uma's Pakled nature were no longer in perfect harmony, creating an internal struggle that threatened the stability of the planetary defense system they now embodied. As the dust settled and the immediate threat passed, the Packlet High Council and Earth's government faced new challenges. The victory over the cosmic invaders had come at a great cost. The stellar Aegis lay in ruins, multiple cities were devastated, and the hybrid ecosystem showed signs of instability. Dr. Simmons approached the wavering form of Christian Uma, her expression a mix of concern and purpose. "We need to stabilize your merged consciousness," she said, already formulating plans in her mind. "The fate of our worlds may depend on it." The hybrid being's form rippled with uncertainty, its voice a discordant blend of Christians and Umas. I am unsure if we can be fully reunited. The strain of the battle has changed us." As the defenders of the Packlet homeworld began to assess the damage and plan for reconstruction, a new challenge loomed on the horizon. The stability of the Christian Uma entity, and by extension, the planetary defense system, hung in a precarious balance. The hard-won peace was fragile, and the future of both human and Packlet civilizations remained uncertain in the face of this new, internal threat. Challenge: the stability of the Christian Uma entity, and by extension, the planetary defense system, hung in a precarious balance. The hard-won peace was fragile, and the future of both human and Packlet civilizations remained uncertain in the face of this new, internal struggle. As the dust settled on the Packlet homeworld, the full extent of the damage became apparent. Cities lay in ruins, the hybrid ecosystem showed signs of instability, and the Christian Uma being's form flickered ominously. Dr. Simmons, her face etched with concern, made a swift decision. "We need to move you to the underground complex," she said, addressing the wavering form of Christian Uma. "It's our best chance to stabilize your merged consciousness." The hybrid being nodded, its voice a discordant mix of Christians and Umas. I agree. The strain is becoming unbearable." As they descended into the subterranean facility, Colonel Hawthorne emerged from the command center, his uniform singed and torn. He surveyed the devastation around him, his heart made. "Begin immediate reconstruction efforts," he ordered, addressing a group of human and Packlet engineers. "We need to rebuild and fortify our defenses in case of future attacks." The reconstruction process began in earnest. Packlet engineers, working alongside their human counterparts, started clearing debris and laying the groundwork for new structures. The pollinator creatures, their bioluminescent bodies casting an eerie glow in the twilight, swarmed over damaged buildings, using their enhanced strength to move heavy materials with surprising ease. Deep underground, Dr. Simmons initiated a series of treatments on the Christian Uma being. She combined cutting-edge human medical technology with Packlet energy manipulation techniques, her fingers dancing across control panels as she monitored the hybrid entity's vital signs. "I'm detecting fluctuations in your energy patterns," she murmured, her eyes fixed on a holographic display. "We need to stabilize these oscillations before they cause permanent damage to your merged consciousness." As days turned into weeks, the recovery efforts on the surface gained momentum. Colonel Hawthorne coordinated with Packlet city planners to redesign urban areas, incorporating the adaptive capabilities of the hybrid ecosystem into their blueprints. New buildings rose from the ashes, their structures intertwining with intelligent plants that provided both support and sustenance. However, as the reconstruction progressed, a new challenge emerged. Dr. Simmons, dividing her time between treating Christian Uma and monitoring surface activities, noticed alarming changes in the hybrid ecosystem's behavior. "Colonel," she called, her voice tense as she studied satellite imagery, "we have a problem. The ecosystem is expanding at an unprecedented rate." Hawthorne leaned over her shoulder, his brow furrowing as he watched vast swaths of land transform before their eyes. Intelligent plants spread like wildfire, while new unclassified creatures appeared in regions previously uninhabited. "What's causing this?" he asked, his tone sharp with concern. Dr. Simmons shook her head, her fingers flying across her tablet. "I'm not sure, but I'm detecting traces of residual energy from the enemy fleet's attempted detonation. It seems to be accelerating the evolution of the hybrid life forms." As if to underscore her words, a massive plant-animal hybrid emerged from a newly formed forest. Its body was a fusion of bark and flesh, with multiple limbs that seemed equally adept at manipulation and locomotion. Most striking were its eyes, dozens of them, glowing with unmistakable intelligence. "My God," Hawthorne breathed. "What is that?" "I'm calling it a nexus fauna," Dr. Simmons replied, her voice a mix of awe and apprehension. "And it's not alone. These beings are forming communities, Colonel. They're organizing." The emergence of the nexus fauna sent ripples of concern through both Pakled and human leadership. Emergency meetings were called, strategies debated, and tensions rose as the implications of this new development became clear. In response to the growing crisis, Colonel Hawthorne proposed the creation of a specialized task force. "We need experts who can help us manage and contain this expansion," he argued during a joint session of human and Pakled leaders. "I'm talking about top xenobiologists, environmental specialists, anyone who can help us figure out how to coexist with these new life forms without losing control of our planet." As the task force was assembled, Dr. Simmons made a breakthrough in her treatment of the Christian Uma being. The hybrid entity's form stabilized, its voice becoming clearer and more unified. However, this progress came with an unexpected side effect. During one of the treatment sessions, Christian Uma suddenly emitted a pulse of energy that reverberated through the underground complex. Dr. Simmons watched in astonishment as her instruments registered a corresponding surge of growth in the surface ecosystem. "This is unprecedented," she muttered, her mind racing with the implications. "Your energy signatures are resonating with the hybrid life forms. Each pulse is triggering a wave of accelerated evolution." Christian Uma's form shimmered, a mix of concern and fascination evident in their merged voice. "We are more connected to this world than we realized. The question is this connection a threat or an opportunity?" As Dr. Simmons grappled with this new development, the situation on the surface grew increasingly complex. The nexus fauna, displaying remarkable intelligence and adaptability, began to establish territories that encroached on Pakled settlements. Tensions rose as colonists found themselves face-to-face with these new, enigmatic beings. Colonel Hawthorne's task force worked tirelessly to develop containment strategies, but the rapid pace of evolution made their efforts feel like trying to hold back a tidal wave with their bare hands. Each new day brought fresh challenges, new species, and increasingly complex interactions between the hybrid ecosystem and the planet's original biosphere. Amidst this chaos, Earth's government decided to intervene more directly. They dispatched Dr. Marcus Reeves, a renowned expert in exotic biology, to assist Dr. Simmons and provide additional insights into the evolving situation. Dr. Reeves arrived with a controversial proposal. "We need to control this evolution," he argued, his eyes gleaming with the excitement of scientific discovery. "I suggest we modify the energy pulse emitter we used against the cosmic invaders. We can create controlled zones of accelerated evolution, allowing us to study and manage the ecosystem's development while protecting existing settlements." As preparations for Dr. Reeves's experiment began, Christian Uma experienced a moment of startling clarity. Their merged consciousness stretched out, touching something ancient and powerful deep within the planet's core. "Dr. Simmons," they called, their voice urgent. "We sense something awakening, a consciousness, long dormant, stirring in response to the changes on the surface. We fear we may have set in motion events beyond our understanding or control." This revelation sent a chill through the assembled scientists and leaders. The race against time had just become even more critical. As they stood on the precipice of a new era, the fate of the Pakled homeworld hung in the balance, with the potential to reshape not just their civilization, but their very understanding of life and consciousness in the cosmos. Dr. Simmons' revelation about the awakening planetary consciousness sent shockwaves through the assembled team. Without hesitation, she activated her comlink, her voice urgent as she spoke. "Dr. Reeves, this is Simmons. We need your expertise immediately. The situation has escalated beyond our initial assessments." Within hours, Dr. Marcus Reeves arrived at the underground complex, his arms laden with specialized equipment. His eyes widened as he took in the flickering form of Christian Uma. Fascinating, he breathed, immediately setting up his gear. I've never seen anything quite like this. Dr. Simmons quickly brought him up to speed on the situation. Together, they began developing a new treatment protocol, combining their knowledge of human medical technology and pack-led energy manipulation. As they worked, Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled over the intercom. Doctors were implementing the controlled evolution zones as discussed. How's progress on stabilizing our unique patient? Dr. Reeves glanced at the monitors. We're making headway, Colonel, but this is uncharted territory. We'll need time. On the surface, the implementation of the controlled evolution zones proceeded rapidly. Modified energy pulse emitters were strategically placed across the landscape, their gentle hum a counterpoint to the constant activity of reconstruction. The first test of these zones yielded immediate results. Within the designated areas, the hybrid life forms seemed to stabilize, their growth patterns becoming more predictable. However, an unexpected development soon caught the attention of the observation teams. Sir, a young Packlet scientist called out, her eyes fixed on a holographic display. The Nexus fauna are moving. They're all heading towards the controlled zones. Colonel Hawthorne leaned in, his brow furrowed. All of them. Why? Unknown, sir, but they seemed drawn to the energy emissions. As the Nexus fauna gathered within the controlled zones, their behavior began to change. They started arranging themselves in complex patterns, constructing rudimentary structures from available materials. Their movements became more coordinated, suggesting a level of intelligence that surpassed initial estimates. Back in the underground complex, Christian Uma stirred. Their forms solidified, the flickering diminishing as Dr. Simmons and Dr. Reeves administered the new treatment protocol. We sense change. Christian Uma's voice resonated, stronger than before. The planet, it awakens. Dr. Simmons leaned in, her voice gentle but urgent. Can you tell us more about this awakening? What exactly is stirring? Christian Uma's form shimmered as they focused. An ancient system, a guardian, designed to protect, but dangerous if not guided. Dr. Reeves' fingers flew across his tablet. A planetary defense mechanism? Incredible. But if it's activated without proper control? Catastrophic, Christian Uma finished. The implications of this revelation spurred the team into action. Dr. Simmons and Dr. Reeves redoubled their efforts, modifying their approach to not only stabilize Christian Uma, but also enhance their ability to interface with the awakening planetary consciousness. As they worked, reports from the surface continued to stream in. The hybrid ecosystem was evolving at an unprecedented rate. New species emerged daily, each more advanced than the last. The pollinator creatures, once simple workers, now displayed problem-solving skills that rivaled those of their creators. In orbit, the joint human-Packlet fleet underwent significant upgrades. Engineers swarmed over the ships, integrating hybrid technology and installing bioneural interfaces. The vessels were being transformed into a seamless blend of organic and mechanical systems. Amidst the flurry of activity, a new alert sounded. Long-range sensors had detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. The possibility of another extraterrestrial presence loomed, adding a new layer of urgency to their efforts. In the heart of the underground complex, Christian Uma's eyes snapped open, their gaze clear and focused for the first time in weeks. We are ready, they announced, their voice a perfect blend of human willpower and Packlet wisdom. It is time to awaken the Guardian. As Christian Uma rose, their form now stable and radiant with energy, the team around them held their breath. The next few moments would determine not just the fate of the Packlet homeworld, but potentially the course of galactic history. Outside, the Nexus fauna continued their mysterious activities. The controlled evolution zones hummed with power, and in the depths of space, an unknown entity approached. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the understanding of life, consciousness, and the very nature of existence itself. As Christian Uma rose, their form radiating with newfound stability, Dr. Simmons' eyes widened. She watched in awe as the hybrid being moved with fluid grace, their merged consciousness seemingly in perfect harmony. However, her scientific instincts kicked in, prompting her to run a final series of tests. As she adjusted the settings on her diagnostic equipment, Dr. Simmons's hand brushed against an ancient Packlet control panel. A soft chime echoed through the room, followed by a low hum that reverberated through the complex. "What was that?" Colonel Hawthorne asked, his voice tense. Before Dr. Simmons could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility, screens lit up with incoming data streams, and the air itself seemed to vibrate with an unseen energy. I'm not sure," Dr. Simmons replied, her fingers flying across her tablet. "It seems I've accidentally activated some kind of dormant Packlet technology." As she spoke, Christian Uma's form began to flicker, their previously stable appearance wavering like a mirage in the desert. Uma's crystalline components pulsated with a soft, pink glow, while Christian's human features contorted in confusion. "Something's happening," Christian Uma's voice resonated, a mix of wonder and concern. "We feel different, separated, yet still one." Dr. Reeves rushed to a nearby console, his eyes scanning the incoming data. "This is unprecedented," he muttered. "The energy signature is spreading across the entire planet." Outside the complex, the effect of Dr. Simmons's accidental activation became rapidly apparent. Packlet females across the planet began experiencing sudden, intense physical and behavioral changes. Reports flooded in from settlements and research stations, describing a planet-wide phenomenon that bore a striking resemblance to human female menstruation, but with far more pronounced effects. Within the complex, Uma's portion of the Christian Uma consciousness seemed to be experiencing these changes as well. The pink glow intensified, and the crystalline structure began to shift and reform. "Dr. Simmons," Christian Uma called out, their voice strained. "Uma's essence. It's changing. There's a powerful urge, a need for closeness." Dr. Simmons and Dr. Reeves exchanged alarmed glances. "It appears to be some kind of reproductive cycle," Dr. Reeves hypothesized. "But why now? And why so suddenly?" As they grappled with this new development, Colonel Hawthorne's comm link buzzed urgently. "Colonel," a voice crackled through, "we're receiving reports from all Packlet settlements. Every female of reproductive age is experiencing similar symptoms. It's causing widespread panic." The implications of this revelation hit Dr. Simmons like a thunderbolt. "The ancient guardians," she breathed. "This must be a built-in mechanism to ensure rapid population growth in times of crisis. Our recent battles must have triggered it." The Packlet High Council, alarmed by the sudden change in their population, quickly called for an emergency meeting. Colonel Hawthorne, along with Dr. Simmons and Dr. Reeves, found themselves facing a panel of concerned Packlet leaders. "What have you done to our people?" demanded the head counselor, his normally placid features twisted with worry. Dr. Simmons stepped forward, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Counselors, we believe this is an evolutionary response triggered by your own ancient technology. It appears to be a mechanism designed to boost population growth in times of danger." As she explained her findings, including the observation that Packlet females seem particularly drawn to human males during this cycle, a ripple of murmurs spread through the council chamber. "This is unprecedented," one counselor remarked. "The social implications alone are staggering." While the meeting continued, back in the lab, the Christian Uma hybrid being struggled to maintain stability. Uma's heightened biological drives clashed with Christian's human consciousness, creating a unique internal conflict. The physical manifestation of this struggle sent pulses of erratic energy through the planetary defense systems, causing sporadic malfunctions. Dr. Reeves, monitoring the situation remotely, realized the gravity of the problem. "We need to stabilize them," he urged Dr. Simmons over the comm link. "If we don't, the entire planetary defense network could collapse." Dr. Simmons, her mind racing, proposed a radical solution. "We need to separate them temporarily," she suggested. "Allow Uma to undergo this cycle naturally." Colonel Hawthorne, overhearing the conversation, interjected. "That's too risky. We can't jeopardize our defenses." "What about a containment chamber? Something that could simulate the conditions for Uma without fully separating them?" The idea took hold, and soon a flurry of activity filled the complex as they began constructing the specialized chamber. Engineers and scientists worked tirelessly, combining human ingenuity with Pac-led technology to create a space that could safely house the Christian Uma hybrid during this critical period. As preparations continued, reports from the surface painted a picture of a world in flux. The Nexus fauna in the controlled evolution zones had begun constructing elaborate structures resembling nesting sites, mirroring the reproductive surge sweeping across the planet. In orbit, the situation grew even more complex. The joint human-Pac-led fleet detected a significant increase in unknown energy signatures approaching the solar system. The sheer number and speed of these signatures suggested that news of the Pac-led world's vulnerability had spread far beyond their solar system. Colonel Hawthorne, upon receiving this information, immediately began mobilizing both the fleet and ground forces. "We need to be prepared for anything Hioridewarn and La Foshintaradi Russian. Whether these are invaders or merely curious observers, we can't take any chances." As the various teams raced against time, the awakening planetary consciousness stirred more forcefully. Tremors shook the planet's surface, and long dormant structures buried deep underground hummed to life. Dr. Simmons, standing before the newly constructed containment chamber, took a deep breath. The Christian Uma hybrid being hovered nearby, their form flickering between stability and chaos. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm. Christian Uma nodded, their merged voice carrying a mix of apprehension and purpose. "We are. Whatever happens, we face it together." As they prepared to enter the chamber, alarms blared once again. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and a deep, resonant hum filled the air. The planetary consciousness was awakening, and time was running out. With a shared look of persistence, Dr. Simmons activated the chamber, and Christian Uma stepped inside. As the door sealed shut, a soft glow enveloped the hybrid being. The fate of two individuals, two species, and an entire world hung in the balance as the next phase of this unprecedented event began to unfold. As the door sealed shut, the chamber hummed to life, bathing Christian Uma in a soft, pulsating glow. Dr. Simmons watched through the observation window, her hand hovering over the control panel, ready to intervene if necessary. Inside the chamber, Christian Uma's form began to shift and separate. Uma's crystalline structure took on a more defined shape, her edges softening and curves becoming more pronounced. Christian's essence surrounded her like a protective cocoon, his human features blurring into a shimmering aura. "Remarkable," Dr. Reeves murmured, his eyes fixed on the readout streaming across his tablet. "The separation is occurring exactly as we hypothesized." Dr. Simmons nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Look at the energy readings. They're stabilizing the planetary defense systems." Outside the facility, the effects of the reproductive phenomenon spread like wildfire. Pac-led females across the planet experienced sudden, intense changes. Reports flooded in from settlements and research stations, describing physical transformations and heightened fertility. Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comm system. "Dr. Simmons, we've got a situation up here. The Pac-led females are, well, they're showing a strong attraction to our human males." Dr. Simmons pinched the bridge of her nose, feeling the weight of the situation. "Understood, Colonel. We need to implement containment protocols immediately." As Hawthorne issued orders to establish secure zones and enforce fraternization rules, Dr. Simmons turned her attention back to the chamber. Uma's form was now fully distinct, her crystalline body pulsing with a soft, pink light. Christian's essence swirled around her, creating intricate patterns of light and color. Suddenly, the chamber's sensors spiked. A surge of bioelectric energy emanated from Uma, interacting with Christian's essence in a dazzling display. "This is incredible," Dr. Reeves exclaimed. "The energy output is off the charts, but it's perfectly synchronized with the planetary defense grid." As they watched, Uma's crystalline body began to fragment, shedding layers of energy-infused material. The fragments hung suspended in the chamber's energy field, slowly coalescing into small glowing spheres. Dr. Simmons leaned closer to the observation window, her eyes wide. "Are those offspring?" Before Dr. Reeves could respond, Alarms blared throughout the facility. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and a deep, resonant hum filled the air. The planetary consciousness, according to Dr. Simmons, breathed. It's fully awakening. Outside, seismic sensors detected a series of coordinated tremors emanating from specific points around the globe. Ancient Pac-led structures emerged from the Earth, pulsing with newfound energy. In orbit, the situation grew even more tense. The joint human-Pac-led fleet reported multiple incoming energy signatures, some accelerating toward the planet while others veered away. Colonel Hawthorne's voice came through again, tense and urgent. We've got company incoming. Multiple unknown entities on approach. The Pac-led High Council's activating some kind of ancient defense protocol. As he spoke, a shimmering energy shield began to form around the planet, powered by the combined output of the awakening consciousness and the surge of reproductive energy. Back in the containment chamber, the glowing spheres continued to grow and multiply. The chamber's energy field fluctuated wildly, struggling to contain the increasing power output. We need to stabilize the chamber, Dr. Simmons shouted over the blaring alarms. She and Dr. Reeves worked frantically, adjusting parameters and rerouting power to maintain the delicate balance within. As they worked, the planetary shield pulsed with increasing intensity. The unique frequency generated by Christian Uma amplified, broadcasting out into space. The approaching entities reacted instantly. Some accelerated their approach, while others retreated. Complex energy patterns emanated from the incoming ships, suggesting attempts at communication. Inside the chamber, Uma's reproductive cycle reached its peak. The glowing spheres, now dozens in number, began to pulse in sync with the planetary shield and the ancient Pac-led structures. Dr. Simmons stared at the readings, her mind racing. This isn't just reproduction, she realized. It's evolution. We're witnessing the birth of a new hybrid species. As the spheres continued to grow and multiply, the chamber's energy field became increasingly unstable. Arcs of energy danced across its surface, threatening to breach containment. Dr. Reeves looked up from his tablet, his face pale. We can't hold it much longer. The power output is too great. Outside, the unknown entities entered the outer edges of the Pac-led solar system. The planetary shield flared brightly, its pulses intensifying with each passing moment. Within the chamber, Christian Uma's merged consciousness reached out, their voices blending into one as they spoke through the facility's communication system. We understand now, they said, their voice resonating with newfound power and knowledge. This is not just about us, or even about humans in Pac-led. It's about the future of all life in the galaxy. As the chamber's energy field neared critical levels and the unknown entities closed in, the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. The birth of a new species, the awakening of an ancient consciousness, and the arrival of mysterious cosmic entities converged in a moment of unprecedented change and possibility. The chamber's energy field reached critical levels, its surface crackling with arcs of blue-white electricity. Dr. Simmons and Dr. Reeves exchanged a look of alarm as the facility's systems began to overload, warning klaxons blaring throughout the complex. We're losing containment, Dr. Reeves shouted, his fingers flying over the control panel in a desperate attempt to stabilize the field. Suddenly, a massive surge of power coursed through the chamber. The energy field intensified, becoming a blinding sphere of light. Emergency protocols activated automatically, thick blast doors slamming shut to seal off the area. Inside the chamber, the glowing spheres produced by Uma's reproductive cycle pulsed with increasing frequency. As Dr. Simmons and Dr. Reeves watched in awe from the safety of a secure monitoring station, the spheres began to merge and coalesce. Look, Dr. Simmons gasped, pointing at the display. They're forming structures. The merged spheres took on humanoid shapes, growing and developing at an astonishing rate. Within hours, dozens of small figures floated within the chamber, resembling a perfect blend of Christian and Uma. It's incredible, Dr. Reeves murmured, his eyes wide. They appeared to be hybrid offspring, developing at an accelerated pace. As they observed the rapid growth of the hybrid children, Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled over the comm system, tense and urgent. Simmons, Reeves, we've got a situation up here. Those unknown entities have breached the outer system and are on a direct course for the planet. Dr. Simmons switched her attention to the orbital data feed. The approaching vessels were now visible on long-range scans, their organic, undulating forms unlike any spacecraft she had ever seen. "What are we dealing with, Colonel?" she asked, her voice tight with concern. "Unknown," Hawthorne replied grimly. "But they're massive and they're moving fast. We're prepping the defense fleet now." As the orbital situation grew more tense, the planet's surface underwent a dramatic transformation. In the controlled evolution zones, the Nexus fauna's bioluminescent pods began to hatch. Swarms of flying creatures emerged, their wings shimmering with patterns that mirrored the energy emissions of the planetary shield. Dr. Simmons watched the feeds in amazement as the hybrid creatures took to the skies, forming intricate swirling patterns. "They're responding to the planetary defenses," she realized. "It's as if they're becoming part of the system." A tremor shook the facility, and Dr. Reeves called out in alarm, "The chamber! It's depressurizing!" The containment chamber's doors slid open with a hiss of escaping air. A burst of energy flooded the room, and with it came the hybrid children. No longer infants, they now resembled pre-adolescents, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly intelligence. One of the children, a girl with Uma's crystalline skin and Christian's dark hair, stepped forward. When she spoke, her voice carried a harmonic quality that seemed to resonate with the very air around them. "We are ready to help," she said, her gaze fixed on Dr. Simmons. "We understand the technology, both human and Pakled. We can optimize the defenses." Dr. Simmons hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Follow me," she said, leading the hybrid children towards the main defense control room. As they moved through the facility, the children effortlessly interfaced with every piece of technology they passed, their touch leaving systems running at peak efficiency. In orbit, Colonel Hawthorne received Dr. Simmons' update and quickly adjusted his strategy. "Reconfigure the fleet," he ordered his officers. "We'll create a multi-layered defense grid, incorporating the enhanced planetary systems." As the unknown entities entered the inner system, they encountered the first layer of the new defenses. The swarms of evolved Nexus fauna creatures formed a living sensor network, detecting and relaying information about the entity's movements and composition. On the planet's surface, the Christian Uma hybrid being emerged from the containment chamber, their merged form had evolved, incorporating aspects of the new hybrid children's physiology. With a thought, they established a direct link to the planetary consciousness and defense systems. Christian Uma reached out with their mind, seeking contact with the approaching entities. A complex, nonverbal communication began, a dance of thought and emotion that transcended language. As this silent dialogue unfolded, the planet itself continued to change. The hybrid ecosystem spread rapidly, covering barren areas with lush, bioluminescent vegetation. This living network interfaced seamlessly with the ancient Pakled technology, creating a planet-wide web of sensors and defenses. The Pakled population, still in the grip of the reproductive surge, began to exhibit new traits. Females developed a subtle, crystalline sheen to their skin, while males showed increased muscle density and quicker reflexes. With the unknown entities now at the edge of the Pakled homeworld's orbit, tension reached its peak. The hybrid children, stationed at key installations across the planet, channeled their unique abilities to boost shield strength and weapon systems. The Christian Uma being stood at the heart of the planetary defense network, their consciousness expanded to encompass the entire world. Colonel Hawthorne's voice came through the comm system once more. "The lead entity is changing shape," he reported, his tone a mix of awe and apprehension. "It's reconfiguring into some kind of communication array." As the massive organic vessel transformed, Christian Uma sent out a pulse of thought. A greeting and a question rolled into one. The fate of two worlds hung in the balance as they awaited a response, the first step in what could be a new era of interstellar relations. The transformed entity hovered in space, its newly formed array pulsing with patterns of light. Then, slowly, it began to transmit, respond. The entity's array pulsed with a complex pattern of light, initiating a form of communication that transcended conventional methods. Christian Uma's consciousness expanded, reaching out to meet the alien presence. Their merged being projected a series of intricate energy patterns, conveying peaceful intentions and an eagerness to engage in dialogue. The entity reciprocated its own set of energy pulses, creating a rudimentary bridge of understanding between the two vastly different intelligences. As this unprecedented exchange unfolded in orbit, activity on the planet's surface intensified. Dr. Simmons and Dr. Reeves found themselves captivated by the rapidly maturing hybrid children. No longer the small, glowing spheres of mere hours ago, they now resembled teenagers, their features a perfect blend of human and Pakled traits. Incredible, Dr. Simmons breathed, watching as one of the hybrid children interfaced effortlessly with a nearby console. They seemed to intuitively understand both our technology and the Pakled systems. Dr. Reeves nodded, his eyes wide with amazement. Look at how they're optimizing the shield harmonics. I've never seen anything like it. The hybrid children moved through the facility with purpose, their touch leaving each system running at peak efficiency. As they worked, the planetary defenses surged with newfound power, the shield strengthening and weapon targeting systems becoming more precise. In orbit, Colonel Hawthorne observed the hybrid children's contributions with a mixture of awe and strategic calculation. He opened a channel to his second-in-command. Lieutenant, prepare to receive some special passengers. We're integrating several of these hybrid children into key positions aboard the flagship. As shuttles ferried the selected hybrids to the orbital fleet, the unknown entities began to spread out, forming a complex formation around the Pakled homeworld. The tension in the command center was palpable, but the presence of the hybrids brought a sense of calm efficiency to the preparations. On the planet's surface, the effects of the reproductive surge continued to manifest in unexpected ways. Dr. Simmons noticed a group of Pakled females who had paired with human males exhibiting unusual physical changes. Their skin had taken on a subtle luminescence, reminiscent of Uma's crystalline structure. Dr. Reeves, she called out, gesturing to the group. Are you seeing this? As they watched, one of the Pakled females locked eyes with her human partner. A look of understanding passed between them, and the human nodded, responding to a question that hadn't been spoken aloud. Telepathy? Dr. Reeves whispered, his scientific curiosity piqued. It seems the hybridization process is affecting more than just the direct offspring. Their observations were interrupted by a sudden commotion outside. The skies above the facility had come alive with movement. The Nexus fauna, responding to the heightened tension in the atmosphere, were undergoing another evolutionary leap. The flying creatures that had emerged from the bioluminescent pods began to form larger, more complex structures in the air. These living formations swooped and swirled, creating intricate patterns that seemed to pulse in sync with the planetary shield. As Dr. Simmons and Dr. Reeves watched in amazement, the organic structures began to act as relay stations, amplifying and focusing the shield's energy while simultaneously disrupting any potential hostile scans from the unknown entities. Deep beneath the planet's surface, ancient structures stirred to life. The ground trembled as massive crystalline spires breached the surface, rising majestically into the sky. These structures, remnants of a long-forgotten Pakled past, began to channel and amplify the planet's energy field, creating a secondary defensive layer that intertwined seamlessly with the existing shield. In orbit, the Christian Uma hybrid being continued its silent dialogue with the lead entity. Suddenly, their merged consciousness was flooded with an influx of information, a series of complex mathematical equations and spatial coordinates that seemed to pulse with significance. Dr. Simmons, monitoring the exchange from the command center, felt a surge of excitement as she began to analyze the data. Her fingers flew over the console as she worked to decipher the information. Colonel Hawthorne, she called out, her voice tight with urgency. I think I found something. These coordinates, they point to a location within our solar system. And these equations, they look like activation protocols. Hawthorne's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grave. Activation protocols for what, Doctor? Dr. Simmons took a deep breath, her eyes gleaming with the thrill of discovery. If I'm interpreting this correctly, it's instructions for activating a long-dormant interstellar transportation network. It's been hidden within our solar system all this time. Hawthorne nodded, his military training kicking in as he processed the implications. Understood. I'm dispatching a small fleet to investigate immediately. As the ships departed for the mysterious coordinates, the hybrid children's abilities continued to evolve at an astonishing rate. Several of them had developed the capacity to manipulate the planet's hybrid ecosystem directly. Under their guidance, the landscape began to reshape itself, organic defensive structures sprouting from the ground and intertwining with the existing technology. The Packlet High Council, recognizing the monumental changes occurring on their world, convened an emergency session. After hours of intense debate, they emerged with a groundbreaking decision: the creation of a new governing body that would include both human and Packlet representatives, as well as several of the mature hybrid children. As this new council prepared to take on the challenges of their rapidly changing world, the lead unknown entity initiated a new form of communication. A massive holographic image materialized in the space between its fleet and the Packlet homeworld, depicting a vast network of star systems and what appeared to be a map of an intergalactic civilization. The Christian Uma hybrid being, interpreting this message, felt a surge of understanding. These were not invaders, but representatives of an ancient galactic community. Their arrival had been triggered by the activation of the dormant transportation network and the unprecedented evolutionary leap occurring on the planet. As this realization spread, the focus shifted dramatically from defense to diplomacy. Colonel Hawthorne ordered the fleet to stand down but maintain alert status, while the newly formed Hybrid Council began preparations for formal negotiations with the representatives of this galactic community. The Packlet homeworld itself seemed to pulse with anticipation. The hybrid ecosystem surged with new growth, spawning species of plants and animals more advanced and interconnected than ever before. The planet was evolving, transforming into a living, breathing entity ready to take its place in a larger cosmic ecosystem. As the stage was set for this momentous encounter, the air thrummed with potential. The future of the Packlet homeworld, the human race, and their place in the galactic community hung in the balance. The unknown entities hovered in orbit, their massive forms a constant reminder of the cosmic scale of the unfolding events. The hybrid children, now firmly integrated into both the planetary defenses and the orbital fleet, stood ready to bridge the gap between worlds. And at the heart of it all, the Christian Uma hybrid being prepared to guide their people into a new era of interstellar relations. The Christian Uma hybrid being stood at the precipice of a new era, their merged consciousness expanding to encompass the vastness of the unfolding cosmic drama. As the negotiations with the galactic community representatives began in earnest, a startling development on the planet's surface caught Dr. Simmons' attention. The hybrid children, who had been rapidly maturing over the past hours, suddenly experienced an unprecedented growth spurt. Dr. Simmons watched in awe as the children's bodies stretched and filled out, transforming from adolescents to young adults in a matter of minutes. She immediately called for a series of medical examinations, her scientific curiosity piqued by this extraordinary phenomenon. "Dr. Reeves, come quickly," she called out, her voice echoing through the facility. "You need to see this." As Dr. Reeves hurried to join her, Dr. Simmons began scanning one of the newly matured hybrids, a young woman with iridescent skin and eyes that seemed to pulse with an inner light. The results that flashed across her tablet left her momentarily speechless. "These adaptations, they're unlike anything I've ever seen," she murmured, her fingers flying across the screen as she analyzed the data. "It's as if their bodies have combined the most advantageous traits of both humans and Packlets, and then taken them a step further." Dr. Reeves leaned in, his eyes widening as he processed the information. "Look at the cellular structure," he pointed out. "It's orders of magnitude more efficient than either parent species. And these neural pathways, they're incredibly complex." As the scientists delved deeper into their examinations, Colonel Hawthorne received an urgent communication from Earth. The colonel's face tightened as he listened to the message, his mind already racing with the implications. "Understood," he said finally, his voice crisp and professional. We'll prepare for their arrival immediately. Turning to his staff, Hawthorne announced, Earth is sending a research team led by Dr. Samantha Carter, a top xenobiologist. They want to study the hybrid ecosystem and its potential applications. We need to set up a proper, welcoming committee and ensure they have everything they need for their work. As preparations for the Earth scientists' arrival got underway, the Christian Uma hybrid being experienced a sudden, intense sensation. Their merged form began to shimmer and fluctuate, energy coursing through their body. In a blinding flash of light that momentarily halted all activity in the command center, the merged beings separated. Christian and Uma stood side by side, distinct individuals once more, yet still connected by an invisible thread of consciousness. Christian blinked, adjusting to the sensation of having his own body again. Uma, he called out, reaching for her hand. Uma turned to him, her crystalline form glittering under the command center's lights. I'm here, Christian, she responded, her voice a melody of chimes. We're separate, but not. I can still feel you in my mind. Their reunion was cut short as the main screen lit up with an incoming transmission from the galactic community representatives. The alien beings, their forms a constantly shifting mass of light and color, began to convey a series of complex images and sensations. Christian and Uma, their psychic link allowing them to process the alien communication more effectively, stepped forward. As they interpreted the message, their eyes widened with wonder. They're showing us a network, Christian began, his voice filled with awe. A vast web of inhabitable worlds, all connected by the ancient transportation system we've just discovered. Uma nodded, her crystalline structure pulsing with excitement. They're offering us access to this network, but there's a condition. We must become custodians of a sector of space, responsible for maintaining the balance of life and technology within our assigned region. As this information spread through the command center, a buzz of excitement and apprehension filled the air. The implications of such an offer were staggering, promising a future beyond anything they had imagined. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, Dr. Carter and her team had arrived and wasted no time in setting up their research station. They chose a location near one of the newly emerged crystalline spires, its towering form casting long shadows across the hybrid landscape. Dr. Carter, her eyes bright with scientific curiosity, directed her team as they unpacked their equipment. Let's start with a full spectral analysis of the energy patterns coming from the spire, she called out, and I want samples of every new species within a 5-kilometer radius. As her team fanned out across the area, Dr. Carter approached the crystalline spire. She raised a hand, hesitating for a moment before gently touching its smooth surface. A subtle vibration coursed through her body, and she gasped as a flood of information seemed to flow directly into her mind. Incredible, she whispered, her voice barely audible. The potential here, it's beyond anything we've ever encountered. Back in the command center, the Pakled High Council and the newly formed Hybrid Council had convened an emergency session to discuss the galactic community's offer. The room buzzed with tension and excitement as representatives from both species debated the implications of accepting such a monumental responsibility. As the discussions reached a fever pitch, a group of mature hybrid children, now young adults, stepped forward. One of them, a tall, striking figure with luminescent skin and eyes that seemed to hold the depth of galaxies, raised her hand to speak. We understand your concerns, she began, her voice clear and confident, but we believe that this is an opportunity we cannot afford to miss. Our unique abilities, born from the union of human and Pakled, make us ideally suited to bridge the gap between different species and technologies. We are living proof of the power of cooperation and adaptation. Her words seemed to resonate with both humans and Pakleds alike, shifting the tone of the debate. As the councils continued their deliberations, the hybrid ecosystem outside continued its relentless evolution, spawning new species of plants and animals that defied conventional classification. In orbit, Colonel Hawthorne received another transmission, this time from Earth. The news of the galactic community's offer had spread rapidly across the home planet, causing a global stir. Governments and scientific institutions were scrambling to prepare for the possibility of widespread interstellar travel and colonization. As Hawthorne processed this information, his gaze was drawn to the viewing port. The unknown entity's ships still hovered in formation, their massive forms a constant reminder of the cosmic scale of the unfolding events. Yet now, instead of feeling threatened, Hawthorne felt a sense of anticipation. The colonel's thoughts were interrupted by an urgent call from Dr. Carter's research station. "Colonel!" Dr. Carter's voice crackled through the comm system, her tone filled with terrifying excitement. "We've made a breakthrough. The hybrid ecosystem, it's not just evolving, it's terraforming. The potential applications for colonizing inhospitable worlds are, well, they're beyond our wildest dreams." As Hawthorne absorbed this latest development, he realized that they stood on the brink of a new chapter in human and Packlet history. The negotiations with the galactic community representatives were entering their final stages, and the decisions made in the coming hours would shape the future of both species for generations to come. The hybrid children, now young adults, continued to reveal new abilities that could prove crucial in managing and expanding the use of the transportation network. And as the Packlet homeworld pulsed with newfound energy, the promise of a vast, interconnected galaxy of inhabitable worlds beckoned. The stage was set for a cosmic transformation with the newly forged Human-Packlet Alliance at its center. As Christian and Uma prepared for the next round of negotiations, they exchanged a look of understanding. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as representatives of a new era of interstellar cooperation and discovery. As the final round of negotiations drew to a close, a palpable sense of excitement filled the command center. Christian and Uma, standing side by side, exchanged a look of relief and accomplishment as the galactic community representatives signaled their approval. Colonel Hawthorne stepped forward, his voice steady as he addressed the gathered assembly. "It is my honor to announce that the Human-Packlet Alliance has officially accepted the role of custodians for our assigned sector of space. This marks the beginning of a new era of interstellar cooperation and exploration." A thunderous applause erupted, humans and Packlets alike celebrating this momentous occasion. The hybrid children, now young adults, cheered with enthusiasm, their unique forms shimmering with excitement. As the celebrations began in earnest, Uma found herself drawn to Christian. She approached him with a mischievous glint in her crystalline eyes, gently tugging at his sleeve. "Christian," she said, her voice a melodious chime, "may we speak privately?" Intrigued, Christian followed Uma to a quiet corner of the command center. She turned to face him, her iridescent form pulsing with what he now recognized as nervousness. "I've been studying human biology more closely," Uma began, her words coming out in a rush. "I've learned about the nutritional and bonding benefits of human breast milk. I was wondering, would you be willing to share your milk with me?" Christian blinked, momentarily taken aback by the request. A soft chuckle escaped his lips as he realized the source of Uma's confusion. "Oh, Uma," he said gently, "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. Human males don't produce milk in the same way females do." Uma's crystalline structure dimmed slightly in disappointment. "Oh, I see. I thought—" Christian, seeing her crestfallen expression, quickly added, "However, there is a different kind of human milk that males can produce. Would you like me to show you?" Uma's form brightened instantly, her curiosity piqued. "Yes, please. I would very much like to learn more about human biology." Taking her hand, Christian led Uma to his private quarters. As the door closed behind them, he turned to face her, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "This is a very intimate act for humans," he explained softly. "It's a way we show love and affection to our partners." Uma nodded, her form shimmering with anticipation. "I understand. Please show me." What followed was a tender and passionate encounter as Christian guided Uma through the intricacies of human intimacy. As things progressed, Uma experienced her first taste of human male milk. Her crystalline form pulsed with surprise and delight at the new sensation. "5 times daily?" she exclaimed, her voice a mix of excitement and astonishment. Christian couldn't help but laugh. "Not quite, he explained, gently correcting her misconception. Human males have what's called a refractory period. We need time to recharge, so to speak. This led to a tender and humorous conversation about the differences and similarities between human and pack-led biology. As they lay together, Christian marveled at how Uma's crystalline form seemed to mold perfectly against his body. "This has been a wonderful learning experience," Uma said, her voice soft and filled with affection. "Thank you for sharing this with me, Christian." Christian pulled her closer, feeling the gentle hum of her energy against his skin. "Thank you for your curiosity and openness, Uma. I feel like I understand you better now, too." As news of Christian and Uma's intimate moment spread among their close friends, it sparked a wave of curiosity and interest in human pack-led relationships. Dr. Simmons, ever the scientist, saw an opportunity for further research. "We need to organize a series of workshops on interspecies relationships and reproduction," she announced to her team. "This could be crucial for fostering greater understanding and intimacy between our species." In the following months, the Human Pack-led Alliance flourished. The hybrid children, now young adults, took on leadership roles in various fields. Lyra, with her unique ability to interface with the transportation network, began teaching others, establishing regular travel routes between Earth, the pack-led homeworld, and other worlds within their assigned sector. Dr. Carter and her team continued their work on the hybrid ecosystem, developing new techniques for terraforming harsh environments. "We're making incredible progress," she reported to Colonel Hawthorne. "At this rate, we'll be able to colonize previously uninhabitable worlds within a decade." Christian and Uma, now officially recognized as the progenitors of the human pack-led hybrid lineage, found themselves at the center of diplomatic efforts. Their unique bond and ability to bridge cultural gaps made them invaluable ambassadors for the Alliance. As they prepared for their first diplomatic mission to a neighboring sector, Christian couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. Who would have thought that a simple misunderstanding about human biology would lead to all this? He mused. Uma's crystalline form shimmered with amusement. "Perhaps it wasn't a misunderstanding at all," she replied, her voice filled with affection. "Perhaps it was the universe's way of bringing us closer together." As they boarded their ship, ready to embark on their next adventure, Christian and Uma knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as partners, as lovers, and as representatives of a new era of interstellar cooperation.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.